Hi, everybody, and welcome. Just turning up my volume here. I'm Aurora. This class is called The Path of Light. I'm so excited. It's a new curriculum. It's new, quote unquote, in air quotes. I developed it 2 years ago. All of my curriculum and everything that I share is from my direct insight, meaning that I got it from right up here from my mind's eye. It's not from reading other people's work or anything like that. So I'm not sure if that adds greater validation to what I share or less validation to what I share, but I'm simply honest. And also, I'm a galactic walk-in. I do not categorize myself as a scientist, and I don't have science training. My training is really in artwork and secondarily in music. But what I'm going to do throughout this class is use some of the descriptive terms that science has developed, and that's Earth's surface, objective materialist science, to be able to talk about some of these deeper concepts of light itself. Okay, so just clear descriptive terms in who I am and what I'm sharing here. And also, thank you for everyone who tunes in, because I've been jokingly telling you, like, this is like the heavy weightlifting. I hope everybody did their warm-ups. I hope you did carbo load. I hope you did your pre-workout. I hope you've got your electrolytes going. Like, your brain is going to have to work hard. My brain has to work hard just in going over my notes in order to be able to talk about all these things. So hi and welcome. Hi there, Suzuka. Hi there, Charlie B. Thank you guys and of course, everyone who's here during the recording of this class. And also thank you to everybody who catches the archive. All right, so let's dive right in. I'm pulling up my notes and you will see me referring to my notes a lot, so don't be concerned if you see me looking off to the side. But let's begin with a reaffirmation of what I spoke about in last week's introductory class. And also just whenever people, I have the meeting setting, blah, 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 so that when you join in, you should be muted. But just it helps me not to break my flow. If you join the meeting, if you will just kindly mute yourselves. That's what I'm talking about. Just mute yourself, because otherwise I have to press buttons and the whole screen goes crazy. Okay, good. Reaffirming from last week and building upon what we learned about last week. Light is information. It is intelligence. It is data or organized information. It is consciousness. It is awareness. It is directly related to time, possibilities, and probabilities. Okay. So when I talk about light, I'm referring to something that is much more than merely the optical phenomenon of something that is brilliant and that we perceive with our eyes in the five senses world. I'm really talking about something that is information, intelligence. Again, I don't have a lot of synonyms for this, but I think that my concept is getting across here. It's an expression of divine mind. All right, that is what light is, and that information or expression of divine mind can be carried through various media, including something that you might not think of as containing light. For example, we'll talk a lot about water. Water contains light, and the molecular bonds that define complex molecules or complex larger structures of matter also contain light. Basically, your whole entire sensorium is made of light. So you will be like, no, Aurora, some things are light, but some things are matter. Some things are pure energy, some things are matter. And I'm like, okay, let's fight about it. Let's fisticuff. No, what we're going to do is recognize that light is a continuum. Light is energy, and it is defined by its flowingness. And when you look around the world, what I'm doing with this sharing for your intellect and for your conscious cognitive abilities is to begin to redefine what you're looking at with your five senses as recognizing it as light. So if I hold up my glass of water over here, it contains light. Not nearly, of course, sunlight is coming in through the window and room light is coming in through the medium of the water itself, but I'm talking about the molecular structure of water itself contains light. And you, as a living biological organism, contain a lot of water, and the water that you contain contains information not only in the potential for it to store information, much like a DVD or a hard drive, but also in the innate aspect of its molecular structure. Today, we're going to talk a lot about the states of matter, and we're also going to talk about the interrelationship of light with gravity. So I'm going to do some crossover with traditional Earth surface objective materialist science, but there will be some things that I'm sharing about that are in conflict because I'm really offering to you the next level of perceiving light and perceiving matter beyond your present level of science. So one of the things that there might be some conflict about is the states of matter, levels of organization in matter, and then also um, 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 light and gravity. And I'm sorry, I got thrown off my track because also when people enter the meeting late and I have to press on the button to admit people, also it throws me off my track. So for future sharings, please see if you can arrive early or on time. And that will help me out a lot. Thank you very much. Okay, so let's begin with light and gravity, light and the stars, and the stages of matter. I'm going to draw a picture for you. This picture looks exactly like what I shared in the whiteboards, and I hope that you will access those whiteboards. No, go to the thing. I hope that you will access those whiteboards because they are very deep and contain a lot of things that I will go over somewhat in today's sharing, but that you will want to learn about more deeply. So this is basically what I drew in the whiteboards. And I'm gonna do, I'm very consistent in my lectures. Let me make sure I've got this correct. All right. And I'm gonna make a wavery line over here to show that there's a separation of what's going on in this direction. And let's go like this. And I'm just gonna write some initials so that you can get a sense of what this is. S is for solid. L is for liquid, G is for gas, P is for plasma, and B is for beam. And then over here to the left, this is the Bose-Einstein condensate, which is a super dense form of matter. And we'll talk about that a little bit. This all conforms to the traditional description or science's description of what matter is. So let's use, well, we can't just use one form of matter to be able to give you this sharing and this expression. But if I used something like water for a big part of this sharing, first I'm going to draw the molecular structure of water when it is a solid. So that's ice. These circles are water molecules. This is object not drawn to scale, and many, many simplifications are happening here. All right, but I'm drawing these as if they are molecules that are super duper duper packed in together. I use the analogy like in the subway system in Tokyo. I've never been to Japan, but I would love to visit there one day. Everybody gets shoved in, you're shoulder to shoulder. There is no room for movement, okay? This relates to matter, the states of matter, levels of density and levels of heat, and also the electromagnetic spectrum. I'm going to talk about all of these things today, okay? So one of the first things is that matter as it becomes, okay, I have to rewind and start again. When we talk about the states of matter, we are talking about something that is more than merely density. Density would be analogous to how close together the people that are in the subway car are to one another. Are they all stuck in there, like jammed in there together? Is there 1 foot between them? Is there 10 feet between them? Or is there a mile between them? Okay, that's the definition of density. But density is not the same as heat. As a definition, heat really has to do with how fast molecules are moving and bouncing into one another. So now let's draw liquid. Liquid is not quite as organized. That didn't work. Just look, nothing is working. Help, help, send the police. Okay, wait, try it again. This is liquid, like you have them spread slightly further apart, right? And liquid is now defined by a flow. where you have these things that are far apart and they are able to flow and kind of bounce into one another. Let's now draw gas. So gas is going to be even further apart than what the molecules of a liquid are. They're not supposed to be sixes. They're supposed to be little molecules, all right? And then let's draw another barrier here. These barriers have to do with how you perceive things according to your five senses. Because again, the definition of matter and what you're experiencing in the world has been largely defined by your biological container. Your biological container perceives optical light and says, that's light. But then your biological container breathes something in and says, this is a gas. I'm not seeing it with my eyeballs, therefore it is not light. But I'm telling you that a gas is light. So these are arbitrary demarcation lines that are coming from what it is to be in your biological container. But I'm speaking to you specifically to refer to your biological container limitations because that's what this information is meant to uplift you from your present circumstance of being matter, that is, in a sea of matter, and remembering yourself as light. So talking about and referring to the limitations of, viewpoint of, and inconsistencies derived from your biological container is totally relevant, okay? When we get over here to plasma, what is plasma? Plasma is considered a superheated gas. So now let me change into a different color and we'll make these little dots here like this. So these are still individual particles that would be considered in a gaseous form, but now I'm also going to use another color, and this color is going to represent electricity. These are pluses. You're like, wait, Aurora, is this Christianity? These are not crosses. These are pluses and minuses in order to represent electricity. Because what happens when you add more and more and more heat, so as we're looking at this graph, as you're moving to the right in this graph, you are witnessing more and more heat, which is a form of light intelligence, being added to matter. And when you add enough heat to a gas, you superheat it, what happens is some of the electrons that are in a particular molecule or atom become liberated. I make a lot of jokes about, here I'm flipping my hair, like being a liberated woman, like I'm a liberated woman, I can date whoever I want, right? But it's kind of the same. In the liberated matter, electrons, which are these little negative charges over here, are free to date whomever they want. They get so heated, so activated, so fast in what is going on that they are no longer wedded to one particular molecule that they have to stick with. They become able to go around and have greater levels of behavior, greater levels of freedom in their behavior due to the levels of heat that have been added to them. So in this class, let's start doing this. When I say the word heat, you can say intelligence or information. And then let's try that sentence again. Electrons achieve additional degrees of freedom due to the high levels of information that have been added to them. Whoa, ho, 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 that hits differently, right? And now let's even go over here to what a beam is. A beam is an organized amount of light. Oh, wait, I didn't say that important feature to you. Let's grab a different color. A plasma, we're circling this in yellow because that is my word, my color word for vocabulary for what light is. Plasma is light, that is optical. So, this stuff is light, that is matter, that is not optical. And if we put it in front of your eye, you will not experience something brilliant. But when we start to get past this side of the graph, you start to experience light that is in the form of optical brilliance that you define as light. So plasma is the flame of a campfire. It is a candle's flame. And it is also the giant ball of consciousness in the sky that we know as the sun. Sun is a giant ball of plasma. It is a giant ball of superheated gas. It is we'll go into it more. Plasma is not 100% organized light. The light, if we showed it, would be like some of it's going like this as a waveform, some of it's going like this as a waveform, some of it's going like this as a waveform, okay? Not fully organized. A beam is fully organized coherent light. So my shorthand is to show these squiggly lines that are supposed to represent waveforms. And those waveforms are, again, a focused coherent beam that represents the ultimate amount of information, the ultimate amount of heat, the ultimate amount of organization that we have in this graph. And beams of light are what is emitted from the sun star. So if I draw that for you, over here, this is like my little sketch of like the sun star. And of course, in the traditional model, what you have are beams of light that come off in a linear sense. I'm not doing my diagram right now. I'm doing the traditional linear time model. So here's a yellow beam of light that comes off of the sun. And what that means in terms of organization and levels of heat and intelligence is that something that is less organized in position in this graph over here to the left emits something that is more organized, that is over here to the right. This is big stuff because what this means, so when you look at the sun is a disorganized mass of light. It is plasma where the beams or particles are flying around in every single different orientation. That wild, I want to say uncontrolled maelstrom, but these words aren't correct, but giant mishmash of stuff that's not very organized emits beams of light that are highly organized. That's a phenomenon. It means that the sun is becoming smarter or is adding intelligence, better words. Additional light is being added to light to make it more intelligent in the processes and experiences that are happening in the sun and in the stars, okay? This graph over here represents the transformational journey of stuff the more that you add light information to it. And I said stuff instead of saying matter, because in this class, we're starting to learn that light and matter are both aspects of what we define as the continuum of light. So big emphasis here. Light is infrared. Light is heat. Light is intelligence. Heat is intelligence. Let's draw a little graph over here. And this is also what I drew in your homework, where you've got, these are waveforms. Waveforms like over here is big, giant, long waves, infrared. Then we get into optical, we'll make a little demarcation. So here's optical light. Not drawing this perfectly, but you get it. That's all of your red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. So like optical light, red, let's just draw some of it. Just so your eyes will thank me for this. Orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet, right? Simplifying the rainbow, but you're getting it because this is going to help you to comprehend this. And over here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make these big, giant, long waves. These are what we interpret as infrared. And of course, going in this direction, it would be ELF, extremely low frequency, stuff that we don't experience as heat, but still is in existence because this is a continuum. You have one big, long, giant wave of different wavelengths. And then as we get over to here, I'm going to make little tiny waves. I'm making the tiniest waves my pencil can make, because here is where you get stuff that is X-rays. We'll just make an X. And then I'm going to say X, kind of like plus. X-rays plus in this direction. X-rays, microwaves, super tiny wavelengths that are super high energy waveforms that are not experienced as optical brilliance, but are a form of radiation. This is the electromagnetic spectrum. Light is a quotient really, sorry to say it again, optical light is a quotient of the electromagnetic spectrum. And so let's also write over here the words EM in order to signify electromagnetism, because electromagnetism is a phenomenon. The two things are related. When you have an electron that flows along like this, it makes a magnetic field around it that goes around it like this. So these are two great tastes that taste great together that are kind of indistinguishable from one another. And so, okay, saying it in better words, and get a different color over here so you can kind of see. This slice of the frequency pi is what we call optical light. Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet, right? But you can see it's a slice of a pie. It's part of a larger continuum. Big emphasis, all of the waves that are traveling in this electromagnetic continuum are all moving at light speed. So these things that we experience as heat over here, it's moving at light speed. This stuff that we experience as optical light is moving at light speed. This stuff that we experience as X-rays and microwaves and gamma rays and, crazy stuff like that is moving at light speed. It is all moving at light speed. It is all light, but what is different about it or separates it is that it has different wavelengths, and that gives it its different characteristics. So this slice of the frequency pi over here, we define as heat because it is not in the area of the continuum that we have optical sensors that can perceive. But we do have sensors, it's your fingertips or other aspects of your tactile sense. You can feel heat. So heat is a form of light, intelligence, data, information that is moving at the speed of light, but that you don't experience as optical light. Big emphasis is that heat is intelligence. So here's where I am at odds with the presumptions of science. Science looks at something like this over here. Water that is in its crystalline form, that would be an ice cube or a beautiful snowflake. And it says, this stuff is more organized than water that's over here. This would be water as a gas. That's the steam that comes out of my tea kettle in the morning. What I do in the morning is I add intelligence to water. This is water that is liquid right over here. And I get some semi-intelligent water out of my water filter tube, kind of carafe. It's at room temperature. It's only semi-intelligent. And I put it into my kettle. And what I do is I add some of this stuff to it. I add heat intelligence to it. So here I am, here's my fire, right, underneath my tea kettle in the morning. And I add that intelligence to it, and it turns it into this stuff, which is water that is more intelligent than liquid. My coffee is more intelligent than room temperature water. It's true. That's why it wakes you up in the morning. I am joking, but seriously. This does not represent less intelligence. It represents greater levels of intelligence. Science has presumed that this is a more organized state of matter because of its crystalline structure. Crystals are defined as a regular matrix, not like the Keanu Reeves movie, but like a lattice work of molecules, molecular lattice work, where it's very organized. And the presumptions of science have to do with the limitations of your five senses and the limitations of even your computational devices, because even your most highly developed supercomputer is not sophisticated enough to model the molecular movements, all of these molecules that are bouncing around and bouncing across each other in the level of steam, to be able to recognize that it's a dance and it's a language. That as heat energy is added to each of these forms of matter, there is a greater level of intelligence and the language of movement that is added to it. These molecules don't move in random patterns. They move in intentional patterns. But you have to have intelligence to perceive intelligence. And yes, you may quote me on that. So you have to be intelligent enough to perceive that these molecules here are not randomly bouncing off of one another, that they actually create an incredibly complex higher dimensional expression. And the higher dimensional expression is beyond merely the third dimension, which would be a series of static objects that have both length, width, and height or formfulness. But fourth dimension and higher, something that involves time, something that moves, grows, or evolves as you move through time. And this is a very, very complex dance, language, and motion of molecules where you have, tens of millions of variables moving even within a small, like a square footage of atmosphere or a small amount of steam. So you have to level up in both your perception and your tools of perception to be able to perceive that language. Then if you add even more heat, like here I am putting a giant bonfire underneath this steam, and adding even more heat light intelligence to it, what do you end up with? You end up with plasma. And yes, you can superheat water to the form of it being a plasma. You end up going into like, in Celsius degrees, it's like millions of degrees Celsius. It's almost an absurdity to talk about it, but it can happen. But we can think about it also in terms of like superheated oxygen, superheated hydrogen. These are the gases that we're most familiar with that form the plasma that we know as the sun, a glowing ball of light in the sky. And again, the molecules of that particular form of matter, plasma, have been given so much intelligence and are dancing at, here's me dancing. They're moving so fast. You're like, Rory, you're scaring us. But they're moving so fast, I can't draw it effectively across your screen. But they are zooming, moving in a very, very fast and very, very complex pattern. And they are so fast and so complex in their movements that it literally redefines what is possible for that matter. And it becomes a plasma, which can carry an electrical charge. This line of demarcation is important because it represents the barrier or threshold between which our five senses define something as either being physical, tangible matter, or something that is non-physical and non-tangible. We define a plasma as something that is non-tangible. Like, for example, if I wanted to take a candle's flame and put it on a scale and weigh it, I would be unable to do so. Yet, plasma does deform the fabric of space-time. I'm going to hop out of this. Now I'm going to scare you with more diagrams. I'm not going to scare you. I'm going to uplift you with more diagrams. All right. So now I'm going to draw. I draw this customarily in my other class too. This is meant to represent the fabric of space-time. Wait, let me make an adjustment here. I want fatter lines. Get a nice fat. Here we go. I draw it as if it is a flat playing card like this, right? And through the magic of perspective, you can kind of comprehend that these are like checkerboard patterns. It represents a flat plane, right? I talk about this in my classes all the time. And then here is, for example, a sun star. We could also think about it as a super heavy bowling ball, right? And this, everybody takes this for granted now. This is a super gravitational object. The sun or any star out there is super gravitational. It's got a giant gravitational field. In fact, this here, wait, let's make a dot. Wait, let's get funny. This little blue dot represents our planet, and it is the gravitational force field of the sun that prevents our planet from flinging off endlessly and, going bye-bye and going somewhere else. When I draw this, so now we're getting into my particular shorthand for how I convey information. I draw this deformation of the fabric of space-time and consciousness. Aurelia's already way ahead of me. She wrote it, gravity well. That is a stretching of this fabric down like this, but not an infinite stretching, all right? An infinite stretching would be if I brought this line down, all the way down below your screen, all the way down below your screen, and went off infinitely through the floor to the core of the earth. A gravity well, as I draw it, to be able to talk about the deformation of the fabric of space-time for a non-infinitely heavy object would be shaped like this, all right? It's kind of, here, I know, a messy drawing, but you get it. So let's get a different color over here, different color. This is the force of gravity pushing downward, and it deforms that perceived flat surface of space-time and consciousness to create a little divot, all right? But now you have to erase all this. She's like, I'm scared. Don't be scared. We have to erase all of that because it is not fully accurate. Because what is really accurate is that it is a 360 degree or spherical. Spherical is actually more than 360 degrees. 360 is just circular, but don't rake me over the coals on my language. Deformation of the fabric of space-time, that is spherical. I'm having trouble drawing it. It's going to look like Homer Simpson's stomach. Trying to make it look halfway decent here, but I think you're starting to get it. Kind of got it for you. All right, so there's limitations in how easily I can draw this for you with this type of a whiteboard and the limitations of my drawing software here, but you get it. What is really happening with this giant ball of plasma here? And again, plasma is straddling the line beyond which we talk about something as being physical formfulness. We don't even technically define this as physical formfulness, but there is something that is very bright. It's full of a lot of light in the sky, and it affects gravity. Takeaway, there is an interrelationship between light and gravity. That is different than what science teaches. Science presently teaches that light is not affected by gravity, and that light does not create gravity. So when science models a black hole, for example, it would show light like going along, going along, going along, going along, going along. And then if, like you're always going to be whatever, a couple of steps right above the sidewalk. But then if the sidewalk tilts down suddenly, then light will similarly tilt down suddenly. It's science's perception of this is limited, and it's talking about light as being deformed by or affected by the deformations of the fabric of space-time itself. More accurately, there is an interrelationship between light and gravity. Gravity is the experience of solid objects responding to the deformation of space-time. So for the ease of being able to talk about things in this class, I'm not going to draw my diagrams as if they are totally accurate spherical deformations like this, because it will be very visually confusing. But you guys are super strong and you're the heavyweight lifters of the galaxy, and you will be envisioning everything that I'm drawing as if it is not merely on a flat plane, but is instead in a spherical totality or three-dimensional contextualization of this fabric of consciousness and of potentials. All right, good. Aurelia's with me. She's telepathic. She can see the mind images. Good, 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 good. So this is big, important stuff, because what I'm going to draw for you now, so we have fabric of space-time there, and here we have a sun star, and the sun star creates the deformation in the fabric of space-time. That's not an infinite stretching, but is a partial stretching, downward like this, downward like this, downward like this, right? And then, of course, if you have an infinitely heavy object, or what singularity is, it's an infinite stretching all the way down off your screen like this. And what we then experience when we look at the entirety of the fabric of space-time, so let's draw a bigger sheet. That was a crappy draw. Let's try it again. So I need help. Help me. Believe in me. Believe I can do this with this software. Okay, so here's multiple stars. Star, star, star. Look, I can't even draw a circle, guys. I need help. I need big help. Okay. There we go. And Remember, I was telling you last week about singularity that's at the center of each one of these stars. So we have a purple dot, purple dot, purple dot, purple dot. There's the purple dots at the center of each one of these sun stars. And what that means is that every single one of them has an infinite stretchiness, an infinite stretchiness, an infinite stretchiness, an infinite stretchiness, but they don't all go in different directions like that. So now I will draw this for you correctly. They all go, where's the purple dot? To the same singularity, which is right here. Hope you can see that on your screen if you're watching on a tiny phone screen. And that is singularity, the infinite stretching to that point. And this one stretches infinitely to that point. And this one stretches infinitely to that point. And you can see why I can't possibly draw this as a sphere and why I was very intimidated when I first got this vision of like, how am I going to draw all of this? It's a simplification that is giving us a shorthand to be able to talk about this. But basically, all of these infinite stretchinesses, which is a stretching inward, 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 all around the outside surface of these stars. You're getting it now. You're totally getting it. This is an inward journey. And if you journey inward endlessly, what you do is you reach singularity. And every single one of these stars has the same destination as you journey inward. I am bringing this up to you because what you're starting to see is that the fabric of space-time, like if this is the fabric of space-time, it has different warpages, different levels of being stretched out, sometimes stretched out a little bit, sometimes stretched out a lot, sometimes stretched out a tiny amount. So for example, this stretching over here would be the amount of stretchiness or the gravity well that is created by a star. And then if we make a tinier thing for our Earth makes a little tiny gravity well because it is less massive. All right, this is measurable. Earth has a smaller gravitational field than the sun does. This is easy. Earth is made of matter. Like you guys, you could like run outside right now, like stamp your foot on the ground. Be like, yep, this is made out of stuff. This is definitely defined as matter. But if you could go to the sun and stamp your foot on the surface of the sun, and if you were not incinerated, you would be like, this is not matter. You would be like, this is a bunch of plasma. Can you stamp your foot on a candle's flame or on a campfire's flame? The answer is no, and it would be dangerous. Don't do it. But there is no formfulness there. But somehow this thing that has no formfulness is creating this, which is a deformation or a stretching or a warpage in the fabric of space, time, and consciousness. So now we're starting to comprehend that this is different than just thinking of something as being heavy. Like we think of something that is massive as being heavy. Like, oh, it's too heavy for me to lift up. But this is made out of light over here. And technically light does not have mass. But in this case, it is affecting the fabric of space-time as if it has mass. So the most accurate thing that we can say is that there is an interrelationship between light and gravity. And this interrelationship even goes to the point of tiny, tiny, tiny molecular bonding. So now I'm going to clear this all away as much as I can, effectively as I can. And now I'm going to draw little tiny fabric of space-time. This is fabric of space-time over here, like on the atomic and molecular level. And I already drew this for you, and I drew it as last week. Here it is. Oh, wait, that's it. That's the drawing of my entire career, guys, that line. That line represents the fabric of space-time as seen perfectly on edge, like a playing card held perfectly on edge, right? And this is what's happening at the microscopic level or the subatomic level. What you have is similarly little divots that go down. Some of them are, I call them comfy chairs. Some of them are small gravity wells. Some of them are slightly larger gravity wells. These are all on the level of just a molecule, not a sun. These are tiny little things. What I'm trying to get across to you is the concept that just as an object that is very, very large and that you can perceive with your giant optical senses. A macroscopic object creates this deformation of space-time, tiny little molecules. They don't create this fat warpage of the fabric of space-time, but they respond to it. And this is literally also an expression of light. So in this case, the definition of light is not something that is optical brilliance. It is a topological or surface-based expression of truth, information, and data. So far today, I have redefined molecular movement and the dance that we know as heat as being light. And I am also redefining the warpage, texturized surface, or convolutions of what we know as the fabric of space-time and consciousness as also being light. Let's rewind to the Big Bang. The Big Bang is a concept that science describes, but that you can also think of as every minute. So like, here's the Big Bang, like, woohoo, like I'm matter, I'm expanding outward, like I'm the creation of the world, blah, 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 the world. I know, I'm very silly. So wait, in better languaging, you can think of the Big Bang as a effective allegory of the big beginning of everything. The concept that you started out with a super dense compression of all matter and the possibilities of all matter that then suddenly spontaneously kapow, 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 expanded outward and began to become larger and bigger, expanded the entire envelope of what we would define as universe and created the cosmic infrastructure in those levels of expansion. And this is the story or the cosmology that is told to your intellect to be able to explain the presence of matter around you. This is also looked at as an ancient event. Like the Big Bang happened a long time ago, and now we know about it, and we're still kind of in the after effects as the reverberations of that initial event are flowing through time that we're experiencing. Another way of thinking of the Big Bang is that it is continual. It is happening in every moment through your observership. That through your experience of the potentials, experiencing the uncollapsed potentials of the waveforms of the fifth dimension and higher. I have to rant about 5D versus the fifth dimension, because some of you guys have had your minds somewhat polluted, no offense, but eating junk food, because there's loose language that's in the community of seekers right now about 5D, and 5D is expressed as some kind of a elevated or exalted mental state. But I didn't comprehend what people were talking about for a very long amount of time, because I'm like, 5D is not the fifth dimension. And then we all agreed at a certain point, yes, 5D is not the fifth dimension. So just to clarify in my class, so we don't all go crazy, 5D is a very invalid premise, is loose language, and is actually not helping you on your journey. It is the description of a supposed experienced exalted state that is on some kind of a ladder or hierarchy of consciousness development that I find to be wholly invalid and inadequate. To contrast, fifth dimension is the time potential that is more complex than the fourth dimension, which is the timeline. So it is the beginning of a multidimensional nonlinear time experience. So when I say you have the present experience of your moment-to-moment Big Bang, because your observership is looking at and perceiving the uncollapsed waveforms of the fifth dimension of world of pure potential and higher, and then you are taking those potentials and collapsing them into matter, that is accurate. All right? 5D and the other stuff about what density you're in, whether you're in 12D or 5D or 7D. How come no one's ever talking about 7D, 9D? It's just like your skepticism should be, I'm inflamed. Your skepticism should be ringing alarm bells. Let me hydrate. Instead, it's just been like acculturated, snuck in under your radar. And it's very unhealthy and just not productive, okay? So wipe it all away. Throw all that stuff out the window. Mental sorbet. Okay, don't think about that. Now think about the fifth dimension properly. You have the first dimensions that are spatial dimensions. You have the zeroth dimension. The zeroth dimension is directly analogous to this super dense, super compact initial starting point of what is perceived as the Big Bang. It is analogous, directly analogous to, here I'm making the singularity dot at the center of that big giant sun star that's in the sky. So the zeroth dimension is infinity, and it's the overlapping everythingness of everything that can possibly exist in reality. And from there, you have the first dimension, which is a line and or a series of dots that is connected, that connects that original dot to any dot anyplace else. So here's a dot over here and a series of dots that connects that first dot to this dot is the first dimension. And it requires that initial leap of consciousness. Well, what if a part of me wasn't with me, but was instead over here? And that is the expansion and the creation of space-time, because it creates space. Like, how long does it take to get from point A to point B? Sorry, space. Point A to point B, and then time. How long does it take to get from point A to point B? Depends upon how fast you are moving. This is basics here, the fabric of space-time. And then if you go perpendicular to that, any direction 90 degrees perpendicular to that initial line, then you will get the second dimension. Here I am lining up a bunch of things to make it look like a flat plane. Pen doesn't work. Flat plane is the second dimension. And then if you line up many, many, many flat planes on top of each other, what you get is a cube. And you're familiar with that as being a third dimensional box. But a third dimensional box that does not move through time is just frozen there. So if someone says you're so 3D and they're trying to say like you're stuck in the box, but they're also saying like you can't be moving through time. If you're only third dimensional, you're not moving through time. Everybody, no matter how mundane they are, no matter how much they are focused on the weather, sports, and politics, is moving through time. And what that means is that you have here, I'm drawing squares, but these are actually boxes. A line of cubes makes up the fourth dimension. The fourth dimension is time. It is a line of time boxes, and all of these time boxes represent moments of time. Like here's 12 o'clock, and here's 1 o'clock, and here's 2 o'clock, and here's 3 o'clock, and you're moving through time as you move through there. It's a line. That is the fourth dimension. And it's like a road or linear time or a series of train cars. The fifth dimension is the bakery where you make this stuff. It is a place of pure potential. It is a place where there are waveforms that are not yet stuff. They're not yet three-dimensional boxes that you can step inside of and inhabit. And everything that you're experiencing from the fifth dimension and higher is a non-tangible, non-material series of uncollapsed waveforms. When you observe those uncollapsed waveforms, what you are doing is literally transforming the waveform of light, the pure potential of light, into the stuff that we call matter. Here I am scribbling in gray. This is meant to represent matter. And then I should put your eyeball in the middle there because it's the magic of your eyeball. Here's your eyeball that is actually making that happen. And when you do that, when you translate this stuff that is potential and non-tangible into this stuff that is experienced and tangible, that is the moment-to-moment experience of the Big Bang. Not as something that was an ancient cosmological event that created the matter that you're experiencing now, but something that you are doing in every moment, like kapow, Big Bang, Big Bang, Big Bang. Every minute that you're looking around, Big Bang, Big Bang, Big Bang. This really does matter when we get to my teaching about light coming off of the sun and reaching you, and then, reaching, let's say, a tree, and then reaching your eye, and then you perceive the tree. Let's do this. Yeah, I'm going to blow your mind. Just get ready. Your brains will liquefy. So first, let's draw sun. Traditional model, let's draw a broccoli tree. Broccoli tree over here, right? Then let's draw your eye. In the traditional model, we've got light that moves in a linear fashion. It is flung off the surface of the sun star. It moves over here. That light is actually totally absorbed by the broccoli tree, except for green. Green in the traditional model is reflected off. So now we're using green. Green reflects to your eye over here, and then you have an aha moment. Here's like an exclamation like, aha, aha, I just saw a thing. It's a tree. And then in my sharing, you would then transport or trans beam that consciousness event back to the sun and say, I just saw a tree. This is what it was like. All right. But in my correct sharing about what is happening with light, what you have is pure presence of light. Of course, like this represents one of these loops that is coming off of here like this. But one of those loops represents the journey of light, path of light, as light becomes a part of this tree over here. And then this tree beams light to your eye. All of this is sentient. This light is not random. That comes off of the sun. This is not random. That light makes a choice, or the sun makes a choice and says, you're on assignment. You're going over here and you're going to become part of this tree according to photosynthesis. And today we're going to talk a lot about photosynthesis, but I'm not going to dump all the equations on your head because you need to build some muscles. We will do dumping equations on your head next week. So we're just going to talk in abstracts today, but we're going to talk about the creation of glucose. It is not by accident. Photosynthesis, which is literally making stuff out of light, is not by accident. It is intentional. That means, let's say you have here at one photon or one of these dots. That is meant to go here to this particular tree. Think of all of the different trees and blades of grass and tiny moss creatures and, you know, whatever, little things that are plankton in the sea, like all of these different photosynthetic creatures that are in existence. And just if you ever are insomniac or need to just think about something deep while you're like rocking in your hammock or like floating in your bathtub or whatever, just think about that. None of this is random. The light is a conscious, sentient piece of information. It is self-aware, and it makes a choice, or it is given the assignment to go on its journey, and its journey is to become a part of this organism here, specific, not random. And then this organism here beams some quotient of that light, information, intelligence to you over here as the observer. It is not by accident. When you say it's merely reflecting off, you take away all of the sentience and intention and motivation from the tree, who is a volitional being, who is perceiving you and who is literally saying, oh, the way that I am here in my teaching right now, I'm not saying like, I'm just going to send off some random words to random people. I'm like, no, I am talking to you. Like I'm specifically sending this information to you. It is not random. It's very specific. We got to give that same level of credit and recognition to the tree. That is not just randomly like, blah, like sending off light in all sorts of different directions, nor is the sun or the stars. They're sending it specifically to you. So that creature here sends that light information specifically to you over here. Now, in terms of observership and collapsing waveforms, what is happening is you are not looking at a tree. Whoa, I'm going to erase my broccoli tree. I already hear you. Sometimes it's funny to hear your mind. You're like, what? What am I looking at? You are looking at a sea of uncollapsed waveforms. This green is meant to be a group of uncollapsed waveforms that is not yet a tree, because it takes your observership looking at those waveforms to collapse them from the potential of tree into tree-ness. So what you have here is an impossibility, because you would have light that comes from the sun and then comes over here to this tree and then either reflects off of or is beamed off of that tree to you. And then when you receive that light, you then create the tree and say, I am creating this tree through my observership. None of that makes sense. The order of operations fails. Your world falls apart. Just give up hope. Abandon hope. Like, I don't know what to do now. Okay, don't panic. Because what actually is happening is you are creating that tree with your perception. And a more accurate way of being able to draw all of this is to draw everything overlapping on top of singularity. Here's the waveform potential of the tree. And here's your eyeball. And there's no space between any of these things. There's an old song, you're going to sing it in your mind with me. I am the eye in the sky looking at you. Okay, sorry, I'm getting very silly. But this is what we have. We have no space between the sun or the star that is emitting the light. We have no space between the sea of waveforms that is the potential for a tree. We have no space between you and the tree and the sun. And what you have is an interrelationship and a flow of the continuum of light between these three levels of sentience. And light itself is sentient in order to create the experience of tree, eye perceiving tree. My words didn't do it justice, but I did tune in with you telepathically and you're getting it. You're recognizing that you're part of a seamless continuum. Here's light as a seamless continuum. The emitter of light or the sun star, the waveform potential of the tree as a photosynthetic being, and your own eye as an optical brilliance sensor are all part of the same thing. They're all part of the same continuum of light. And there's no space between you. Remember, I just defined space as point A to point B and time as how long it takes for energy to flow from point A to point B. If there is no space here, that also means there is no time here. It means it takes 0 seconds for that light energy to travel from the sun star to the tree. And it takes 0 seconds for the light to be beamed or reflected from the tree to your eye. All of this becomes an experience that happens all at once. Now let's go back to talking about this brilliant drawing of the universe on its side in what I would call the primordial moments of creation. And those primordial moments can either be perceived as the Big Bang in deep antiquity, or every moment, bang, 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 you're experiencing anything that is coming into being right now. Hold on, I need to hydrate. In the initial expansion creation from the Big Bang, or in making matter, that's initial first part. I'm going to scribble. Don't be afraid. Light is everywhere. Light is everywhere. But does this mean that there is optical light everywhere? It actually means that there is information intelligence everywhere, but not necessarily that you have brilliance or optical light that you would perceive with your eyeballs if you could be looking at it in that moment now. But what you have is a sea of undifferentiated intelligence. And in that sea of undifferentiated intelligence, you have the totality state of all light everywhere. And then what you have are individual atoms. These dots represent individual atoms with no molecular bonding. So I'm going to ask you to do a lot of heavy lifting right now. Molecular bonding requires light, and the light is not random. In exactly the same way that I told you about light that comes from a sun star and interacts with a photosynthetic being. Maybe we just get a green over here, like a leaf. This is meant to be a little leaf in a forest somewhere. And that is not by accident, that is a form of intelligence and sentience. In the early stages of the organization or creation of cosmological infrastructure, there is so much light, which is information and sentience, that it is telling every single one of these atoms to simply be an atom and do not be bonded with into larger, more complex structures, any other atom to become molecules. So initially, there are no molecules. There are just individuated atoms. And this light is not optical light. It is information that is telling everybody how to be formed, how to be arranged. You're getting it. Light is the directive that tells matter how to be arranged. And because all of these individual atoms are not molecularly bonded, what you have is a fabric of space-time with no convolutions, like a perfectly flat ironed tablecloth or something like that. No wrinkles, nothing on it. just the perfectly flat surface, which of course is not flat, but is actually spherical and multidimensional. But I'm just drawing one slice for the ease of this to be able to show what this is, okay? Now let's talk about something like photosynthesis, because I think that's the main five senses example that you have where light is translated into matter. We have many examples where matter is translated into light. I'll go back to my face because I think it's probably easier for you to focus on me than my face. Okay, let's talk about examples where matter stuff gets translated into light or pure energy. Combustion, we've talked about this already in class. That's something like a campfire or a fire in your fireplace. Put a log of wood someplace and ignite it, all right? Combustion. Or how about the natural gas in my stove that I'm going to put my tea kettle on top of to be able to combust something and add heat, light, energy to my water to make it more intelligent, to make coffee in the morning, to make me more intelligent in the morning, all right? So combustion. This is one example where physical light, that is known as matter, gets liberated into what we perceive as light. Another is oxidation. This is what you know as corrosion and rust. It is the molecular addition of oxygen, but usually at room temperatures. So combustion happens at higher than room temperatures. The oxidation process usually happens at room temperatures to be able to add an oxygen molecule and begin the process of slowly breaking down matter. That's what rust is, or patina, like the green scaly stuff that's on the outside of the Statue of Liberty, all right? And then what's the other way that we transfer or translate physical matter stuff into pure energy? And that is respiration. We do that in our own bodies. And the respiration and oxidation are directly related to digestion, which is technically this liberation process is not what's happening in your digestive tract. It is what is happening at the level of your mitochondria. So your mitochondria are subcellular organelles. In my very non-scientific language, they are an anatomical aspect of physical embodiment of your light body. So science does not talk about your light body. Science is not going to touch your light body with like a 10-foot long clamp pole. It's like, no, we don't want to talk about this. I'm very uncomfortable about talking about your light body. Because science is like, no, like you have a physical body, put it on a scale, like you weigh whatever, like, 150 pounds. But how much does your light body weigh? Science is not prepared to talk about that. But I'm prepared to talk about that because you have a variety of different structures in your physical body that relate directly to transporting or circulating information and sentience around your body. And your mitochondria are a big part of that. The membranes of your mitochondria are actually amazing. I want to call them micro machines, but that's not really honoring them enough. They're biological architecture. That is a quantum laboratory. And that means that it acts at the subatomic level to be able to separate out protons, which is at the nucleus of the atoms of the food that you've eaten, from electrons. And I already talked to you today about how plasma makes superheated gases where the molecules are liberated. The girls are liberated, the electrons are liberated, and they can date whomever they want, right? This happens at the level of your mitochondria too. It is not a superheated gas known as a plasma. It is a type of siphon membrane where there is a separation that is made between the protons and the electrons. And then the electrons in their liberated state are what really runs the functionality of your body. It is a non-physical aspect of the phenomenon of energy. And we have two more classes after this one. In one of the future classes, I'm going to talk about electrons flowing in a wire. And here I am pointing at my electric light and the light that comes from both electric lights and all sorts of different tertiary, secondary and tertiary sources. So the sun and the stars, these are primary light sources. That's where light comes from. But a secondary light source might be something like a candle, a cigarette lighter, a campfire. These are ways in which solidified light, known as matter, re-liberates the light back into its flowing state. Today's class, the theme is all about light as a continuum. Sometimes light is in its flowing state, and then we recognize it as optical brilliance or sometimes tactile heat. But sometimes light is in its stored potential state. And that's when we recognize light as matter. And when light is turned into matter, the process of doing this, the way that we're most familiar with, is photosynthesis. So again, the other three ways, the other three directions, we're very familiar with that and we see it all the time. But photosynthesis is rare and plants are mind-blowing geniuses. Don't underestimate plants. Just because it might be like a simple blade of grass that's growing out of the sidewalk or whatever, dandelions, you're like, get out of here, stupid dandelions, you're making problems. But these are geniuses and miracles, okay? So here's what you need to know about photosynthesis. First, I will talk about it, then we will draw pictures about it. But the light that comes to be a part of a plant through the process of photosynthesis. Photosynthesis, again, is definition. Photo meaning light, and synthesis meaning making stuff. You're making stuff out of light. It is a genius translating these potentials of sentience and light as it is flowing at light speed into something that is slower and denser that we know as matter. It's not by accident and it's not random and it's not interchangeable. So a photon goes on its journey on the path of light, and that photon has a directive or a motivation to become part of a particular plant. You can pretend that my hand is a leaf and that this is the goal and the destiny of that particular beam of light. It is not random. When you look at the stars at night, and I would encourage everyone to do this. Hopefully you live someplace where you can actually see the stars at night and it's not just like a big giant, city or whatever. But when you look up at the stars, you have to know that if this is the sun or the star, it is actually emitting spherical shells of light that are always making like kind of whoosh, whoosh, whoosh noises. They're always emanating outward in every single direction. If I were to draw it as a drawing, I would scare you because I would crayon all over the whole entire screen until the whole entire thing would be all yellow squiggles. The sun or the star is emitting a spherical or multiple spherical concentric shells of light that are constantly moving, and you only perceive a tiny portion of it. You only perceive the specific light beam that comes into your eyeball, and that makes you think that you're seeing just a tiny pinpoint of brilliance. That beam of light that comes into your eyeball is not accidental. This class is called Path of Light. That beam of light is on its path. It's on its journey. What it's doing is saying, I'm going to go down there, out there, somewhere. I'm going to somehow go somewhere, and I'm going to get inside of an eyeball. That's its job. It's not random. It's not like, well, I could have flown over there and become a part of that, or could have gone over here and become, absorbed into some matter in a different way. But this random guy came along and I flew into his eyeball. No, just like it is not random that light quote unquote bounces off of a green leaf and then comes inside your eyeball. Light is intelligent and it's on a mission and it has a purpose and it is doing things intentionally, and it is coming a part of your biology intentionally. And that light is also non-random. All light is not interchangeable. That light carries a message that is unique to you and exactly what you need to know about. So the green light that is beamed to you from a plant is not random or interchangeable, and it's a specific message to you. Just like the flapping of my moving mouth parts, these aren't just random noises that I'm making that you just happen to be in my proximity and they just happen to go inside of your ears and they just happen to create a cognitive event. No, I'm specifically making these noises intentionally so that you will get and comprehend what I'm saying, so that I am transferring light through acoustic compression sound waves into your ears and into your neurology right now. Talking, this is communication. The plants around us are not only geniuses of photosynthesis, but they are geniuses of communication, and they're communicating that light information to us all the time. Humans have to level up in order to comprehend this and be receptive to it. And that's a lot of what my job here as a visionary is about, to give you this new contextualization so that you can even be open to it. Because otherwise you wouldn't know, like, you're going to have to build a new type of machine or something like that to be able to study molecular movements in the atmosphere, to be able to comprehend that it's dance. You're going to have to build some kind of a machinery, but in the end, you won't build a machinery because you are the machinery. But if you are an objective materialist scientist or a devotee of that worldview, you'd have to build a machinery to be able to measure the experience of light beaming off of a tree and entering into your eye, and how that represents I would say a communal, like a communication, and to commune or to come together as consciousness. It represents a bridge of consciousness. The light that is on its journey, connecting the sun star, a photosynthetic plant, and you as observer, are bringing you together into community and into continuum of consciousness. And everything that I'm here teaching you about is the mental integument, or the stages that you walk on this ladder as you're climbing upward, to be able to comprehend that you are a part of this continuum of light and this community of consciousness. So when light comes to a plant for the purposes of photosynthesis, something else very amazing and unlikely happens. Oh, wait, we might have to hug. Oh, she just came out for a second. Do you want to have a hug? Want to go back inside? Hi, we love you. Everybody, Cheeky's, she just wants you to know that she's here. She's right back here, and that she loves you. Okay. Cheeky's like, I think if you guys are still busy, I'm going to go have the dog now. Good. Non-random light goes on its journey, and it's going to become a part of this particular leaf. That's its assignment. And here's what happens. The photon comes to the leaf and it enters the chloroplast. The chloroplast contains chlorophyll, which is very, very similar molecularly to the hemoglobin that is in our blood. That's what carries the oxygen and helps to keep us alive. Energy transport, oxygen, oxygenation, and I'm still busy telling you about the miracles that happen at the level of your mitochondrial membranes. But what happens is the photon, the energy impulse, in order to be translated into glucose, which is the physical embodiment of light in our world, it has to go across a labyrinth. Before I gloss over this, let me emphasize this even more. Glucose is a molecular miracle. And I mean, for many years of my life, I've been low carb and not very much about eating sugar, right? And I think we're all trying to be good to ourselves and our health. We have all these different preconceptions about like sugar and carbs, and these aren't good and everything like that. Just throw it out the window for this particular conversation, because whatever are your macronutrients that you are ingesting, if it is a protein, a fat, or a carbohydrate, at a certain point, the food that as it enters into your body is going to be transformed into glucose, which is a sugar molecule that is the representation of embodied light. And glucose is your friend. Embodied light is your friend. Glucose is a miracle that makes consciousness possible and sustains biological life. This does not mean that I want everybody to eat candy all the time or anything like that. Please don't misunderstand me. But I want you to be in celebration of blood sugar, which is what glucose is. In a plant, the impulse of light energy is translated into glucose through the process of photosynthesis. Plants create not only glucose, but then they create more complex glucose molecule-based structures that have to do with the storage of glucose for the nighttime, starches, so that plants don't die at night. Because if you're a plant and you're a light-based being and there's no light, you're definitely whatever, up creek without paddle. You've got problems. So the plants are like, what are we going to do when there's no sunlight, when sunlight is bye-bye? And the answer is store up sugars into complex starches that are like your savings account that you can slowly access over the nighttime. All right. And we're all very familiar with starches. Again, I'm not food shaming at all. Starches are some of the best foods, like potatoes. Potatoes are delicious. We love French fries. Yeah, starchy foods are delicious, and your body loves them because we love to access stored glucose. All right. But initially, the concept of storing glucose was not for our convenience as food eaters, but is really for the plant to be able to keep itself alive during times when there's not light, or really is agreeing with our generalized love and celebration of potatoes. Everybody loves potatoes. And I mean, there's a reason why you feel good when you eat potatoes or rice or whatever, bread, any of these starchy things. Like, they give you a lift because they are freely available carbohydrates. They give you glucose. It's like cash. Like, you feel good when you get paid. You're like, ka-ching, you eat potatoes. You're like, ka-ching, my body just got potatoes. This feels great. And if we were all primal animals, we'd be like, hooray, ka-ching, great. Now I'm ready to like run a marathon. But the only problem is, in this industrialized world, most people are like, yum, potatoes. And then they're like, now I will sit and be sedentary, watch a television show. It's like, that's not what you're supposed to do after you eat a bunch of starches and sugars. You're supposed to do stuff. That's welcome to my TED Talk. Thank you very much. No, but taking all food shaming, dietary and nutrition sensibilities and all of that away, we're talking here in abstractions. Glucose, it gets turned into starches for the plant's benefit to be able to keep it alive at night. And glucose also gets turned into chains of glucose, complex molecular chains that are what we know as cellulose. And cellulose is the plant world's architecture. Like, you have bones that help you to be erect as an animal. Plants have cellulose, and this is what allows plants to achieve greater levels of complexity. So things like mosses and simple slime molds and plants that kind of just cover a surface or creep along a surface have minimal amounts of cellulose. They aren't creating these complex molecular chains. They don't have the architecture to hold them up. But anything that stands upward, even a simple blade of grass, has that cellulose. A plant with a stem, like a dandelion, has that. I'm looking at several trees outside of my window. You can see trees outside of that window too. They are full of cellulose. Cellulose is chains of glucose. We know glucose as a sugar. Glucose is stored up light. Now we can say the sentence: trees are and wood is or are made up out of complex chains of stored up light. And this is what the master magicians of the plant world are doing. They are taking light, which is a story that is defined by its movingness, and they are translating that story through the photosynthesis process into something that is in a stasis field. That wood or fibers inside of a plant, of course, is alive during the lifespan of the plant, but it is also light that is stored up, even if the plant or aspects of it are dead. And we call that firewood. That the plant is dead, but it has left behind its complex strings of glucose stored up light that we can then take, and through the process of liberation of light, which we know as combustion, create light again from that light that has been stored up. Continuum of light, light that flows from a sun star, photosynthesis into a storage on a plant, and then liberated again into light that flows. And when you make campfire, What does it feel like, guys? Or if you make a fire in your fireplace, it feels like light that you can see, but it's not the same as sunlight, right? Like sunlight is very bright and you can see all of the colors. But when you make a campfire or if you make candlelight, what does it look like? It looks like a red-orange glow. Everything looks kind of reddish and orange. You're not getting the full spectrum of colors that you get from the original sunlight. It is secondary light. It's some of the information, but not all the information. It's some of the color information, but not all of it. So you are still able to perceive your optical surroundings, but you don't have accurate color perception. It's heavily weighted towards the yellows, oranges, and reds. And then also, class, what else do you feel when you are around a campfire? Just going to give you a hint, like s'mores. You're like, heat, we feel heat. Yes, you feel heat and you can cook stuff. This is like primal. We're like Neolithic here. Like fire makes it good. Yes, you can cook stuff and it feels hot. And what did I do at the beginning of class today in creating that diagram of the states of matter and the graph of waveforms from infrared through optical light all the way up to X-rays? You are emitting or re-emitting some of the light information that is stored in a log of dead firewood as optical light in yellow, orange, and red colors, and also as infrared heat. The infrared heat is an aspect of intelligence. And when we talk about the myth of Prometheus or the evolution of human consciousness or even aspects of human biology that require cooked foods, because it's like, I know lots of people do the raw food diet. I'm not down on you or anything like that, but just know that your bodies have evolved to be able to eat cooked foods because it's more bioavailable. Like you can get more out of eating less and your brains can get bigger. So the addition of and liberation of stored light through the process of combustion allows you to have more information inside of you. More intelligence. If you lived like most animals do not make campfires to cook their food. There is only a limited amount of intelligence that is available to those animals for them to then integrate into their cognitive processes. When you become sophisticated enough to use fire, which I class as a type of technology, to be able to liberate light and to cook your food, you get more information in your food and you can have more intelligence inside of you. I am being very serious and not facetious at all. When I say in the morning, I get up and I put my kettle on the stove. Through the process of combustion, I am liberating the stored light that is in the natural gas. Next week, I will hit you with all these equations because we're going to look at the light, how light behaves in the process of combustion to be able to create both the heat and the light that's on your stove. And that heat goes into the water that makes it smarter, hotter, and it boils. And then I make coffee and I am more intelligent when I drink that coffee than if I just drank a bunch of room temperature water. It makes the heat makes solidified light, the form of food, more bioavailable. More light can come inside of me than if I just ate a bunch of coffee beans, which sounds disgusting. I would not get very much intelligence from just eating a bunch of coffee beans or whatever, a bunch of uncooked or unprepared foods. I know I'm getting silly, but you guys are definitely along with me for the ride of what is happening. Let's talk about another aspect of the miracle of photosynthesis. When a photon comes to a leaf and encounters a chloroplast made out of chlorophyll, the photon has to go on a little journey that could be considered through a labyrinth, a micromolecular labyrinth, to be able to make it to one of the energy centers where it actually will be turned into the glucose molecule and then circulated around throughout the plant's architecture to keep it alive. The labyrinth, to be able to travel, let's say from point A to point B, from stimulation point through to the energy center point, and on that critical journey to be able to becoming matter, there are all of these different pathways that a photon can take. It's a labyrinth, meaning it's like a puzzle that light has to solve. there are an almost uncountable number of pathways or calculations that the photon can do in order to try to reach its destination. But if it goes in the wrong direction, it will not reach its destination. It will lose energy before it makes it from point A to point B. It will be like out of gas. And this little photon has to figure out the right pathway to be able to go through this convoluted architecture to make it to the energy center, and it cannot be out of gas. It must use its resources effectively to get there. The miracle is that it happens 100% of the time. Every single time one of these intelligent pieces of intelligent information known as light, which is a photon, comes to a leaf intentionally to become made into matter through the process of photosynthesis, it is faced with this complex array of possibilities, of pathways that it can go on. And every single time the photon makes exactly the right choices. It does not waste energy. It doesn't go down a wrong dead end. It doesn't get lost somewhere. It is a 100% efficient system that never fails. It is miraculous, it is almost inexplicable, and it is more sustainable and reliable and complex than any physical supercomputer that human or even extraterrestrial technology has ever created. In a stupid leaf, in a stupid little blade of grass that you condescend to, that you smash with your foot, or with stupid dandelions that you're always trying to pull out and be like, stop growing, stupid dandelions. And the dandelions are like, I'm a genius. I'm a quantum genius. Will you stop, crushing me and trying to kill me? I'm being a genius down here. All right. So once again, the likelihood of the photon traveling from the stimulation point to its destination and never losing energy and always making it to the destination is beyond calculation, beyond your calculation of you don't even have the equipment to calculate the statistical unlikelihood that that happens, much less to perceive it and then recognize the language that is happening and decipher the language that is happening every time that happens. And that happens all the time. Like right now, I'm looking out my window, like there's a beautiful tree, there's another tree, there's a bush, there's leaves, grass. Everything that you're looking at that is photosynthesizing is doing this. It is not only an unlikelihood that happens once or like on certain calendrical days or whatever, like every Tuesday, this unlikelihood happens. It happens all the time, everywhere in all of these different organisms. Light is information, it is intelligence, it is an expression of divine intelligence. And this self-volitional behavior and pathways that light is taking through the process of photosynthesis is a beautiful example of an articulation of that all-pervasive intelligence. Through this conversation, I am bringing you to a level of appreciation for your environment and for the truthful complexities of what you are submerged within. I say this all the time. You're a miracle submerged in a miracle. And what you have to do is rearrange your perception and become more capacitated to appreciate the miracle that is around you. So it's just like when you have to take music appreciation lessons, maybe for classical music or whatever it is, you're like, I'm really not that much into this stuff. But if we teach you about it, then you're like, oh, C sharp, I hear it, I understand, like this is better. So the change of your intellect is hopefully opening the doorway to your receptivity to the truthfulness of the miraculous nature of the world that you find yourself submerged within. Ascension and this transformation back to light speed. Like, why am I teaching? Why is Aurora teaching us all this stuff? You guys are sweating. You're like, this is hard. Like, I'm lifting weights. This is very hard. Why am I doing this? Let's get back to the motivation. Why am I doing this? Because you are actually the abstraction of light. You are consciousness and intelligence and awareness and organized divine data yourself. And you are occupying a material presence and exploring and experiencing a material world. And the ascension process is the re-acceleration of both your consciousness and your material body matter to re-attain light speed. And everything that I'm giving to you here is like the weightlifting training program to be able to get back to light speed. So you're going to start to look at your world not as a dead, stupid, random place, which is unfortunately what materialist objective science has inculcated the worldview of people to look at this place. And I'm like, no, some things I agree with on how science describes our world, but please imbue the world and face it with a sense of gratitude for the complexities of perceived intelligence and the complexities for the architecture of light and the logical formalism of how all of this sticks together, and that this is a huge liberation to be able to comprehend and appreciate the world that you're submerged within. Many aspects of the concept of spiritual liberation or ascension have to do with some kind of escapism, like launch, like this is me with my shoulders down, like I hate my life, launch, like jump up, fly elsewhere, elsewhere in like a clank metal spaceship, or float upward while wearing a white gown and go into a heavenly realm, or escape, get me out of here. And I propose that the solution and that the ascension experience is not get me out of here. It is redefine and transform what here looks and feels like to you, to recognize that here is a miracle and that you are a miracle. But that doesn't mean that you stay in the levels of materialism and separation that you've been in. The levels of materialism and separation have been cognitive, and they have been based upon your five senses. Like when you say there's a separation between what you feel as information that is heat, that's tactile, because you feel the stove is hot, as opposed to what you see as light, because that's stimulating your eyes. And then also the separation of what you feel as physical matter, like a solid, a liquid, or a gas, but then that critical demarcation of moving up into a plasma, where we say, well, something that is a plasma technically has no mass and it has no weight, and it's not something I can feel as a tactile sense. So we're moving out of the realm of things. And what I'm teaching here is really a new worldview and contextualization, so that you can comprehend that these things are actually also light, and you're part of a continuum of energy that is all light everywhere. And you're going to start looking at the world as just being all light everywhere. And that is what it is to be on the path of light. Hold on one moment. I wasn't sure. I heard Cheeky. I wasn't sure if we need to give her a bribe. So apologies that you can tell I'm very attentive to her. Okay, so wait, let me just go checking on my notes. And of course, I'm always open to comments or questions as I'm moving through this. Okay. I want to make sure I got everything important. Pardon me while I check things out. Got that? Got that. Got that. Got that. Got that. Got that. Let's talk about loss of signal. So I am Aurora. I'm a waveform presence on the network of light. When I'm cohabitating there, and I'm also here in a physical presence. But in the continuum of pure light, there is no loss of signal, and nothing ever slows down or becomes less than light. In our pristine experience of the cosmic architecture, light is emitted from a sun or a star. Light goes on its journey. That sun star is sentient and has a motivation or a story that it's here to be a part of, a narrative. It interacts with organisms that themselves have observership. That could be a tree, or that could be you and me. And then that light is in a seamless continuum, rebroadcast to or returned back with or reunited with the star that emanated it. And there is no loss of light through all of these translations. That's big and important, that the information is actually increased through these different experiences. So myself as an impulse on the stellar network represents an infinite journey. When there is a perpetual motion machine or something that has zero friction, it means that the original energy impulse continues indefinitely because there is nothing there to slow it down or stop it. Your particular journey as a soul or as a portion of consciousness, returning to light speed, is your consciousness, sense of self, returning to levels of frictionless bliss where there is no loss of signal. But as an aside, sometimes people here in this world are dealing in the non-pristine system. There is something that is either absorbing or experiencing or interacting with light that is slowing down light on its journey, and that not 100% of the light is returning to or going to where it needs to be. And in my whiteboards, I simply represent this as like a questionable box. Like, let's just draw it as a something, because I don't have the definition for it and I don't want to focus on it too much, but it must be recognized. Like if the sun, it emits, or if photons come out and there's 10 units, but if only 9 units come back, what happened to that 1 unit? It got stuck somewhere, because there's different things that can happen. And remind me, I do have to go back to the original primordial sea of light directly after the perceived Big Bang, and talk about the complexity of molecular creation after that. But first, I want to talk about what are the things that can happen when light goes on its journey. Light can go on its journey, path of light, going along. That loop is endlessly expanding, and that particular light doesn't interact with anything. This is how the narrative story goes for that particular portion of light. One day, the light went on its journey, and it never met anyone and never did anything and never bounced off of or was absorbed by anything, but simply traveled at light speed, in unmeasurable, uncountable amount of time and distance, because there was no contextual relevance, and just kept on going and never went anywhere. But, we're in a world where stars have a limited lifespan. So what would happen? Like, here is the star that is the consciousness that is directly innately connected to that level of awareness that is the photon. And the photon's on its journey, a boring journey where nothing ever happens. But what happens, what occurs if the star goes bye-bye, if the star goes kaput, if the star has no more life? Now we have to redefine what the lifespan of a star is. It's not necessarily a death, like a non-existence, but a transformation from the time in a star's lifespan when it is emitting to a time in a star's lifespan when it is receiving or journeying inward. As I already drew for you in my complex time-space checkerboard pattern fabric showing this is, it's not just a flat thing, it's a three-dimensional thing. And all of the forces are pointing inward towards the inside of the star. And stars have a balance in their emissions where the sending out of light, consciousness, awareness, possibilities, and timelines is a force that is equal to the crushing inward or the journey of profound introspection that happens in the ultimate stretchiness of the journey towards singularity. All right. So stars are alive when they are creating these narratives that are about the balance between sending out and crushing inward. And when that balance is no longer sustained and the star is not sending out enough or being creatively productive enough, all of that information, energy, and awareness, you could call it turns inward, like navel gazing, or sorry, my thing changed and that's why I misstepped, or a backflip into itself, where it is all of a sudden not facing or directing, it's questing through the photonic feelers of its sensorium into the outer world, but is then turning all of its energy towards introspection and everything that is on the inner journey of the star light creature itself. And I've already told you how stars are on a journey of increasing light. So the theme of what I'm talking about right now is light. Like, can you have more than infinity? Can you have infinity plus 1? Can you have infinity plus 2? Can you have infinity plus 1,000? Can you have infinity plus infinity? Can you have more light than light. When you first started out the universe with the Big Bang, or when you are bang, 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 creating the universe, you have a certain amount of light. Can you get more light than that light? The answer is yes. And that's one of the reasons as to why our world exists. Like, mommy, daddy, why does the world exist? Not like so that you have to do a bunch of unfair stuff and pay your taxes and do all these uncomfortable things. No, the world exists in order to increase light, in order for you to, I don't want to say end or come out with, but to experience more light than what originated. Another way of using words is to say that the purpose of the cosmic architecture is to generate more contextual wisdom and intelligence in the organization of data that is known as light intelligence. It is to self-explore and to become smarter. So stars and the sun are balls of plasma. I've already described to you that plasma is superheated gas, and it does have an interrelationship with gravity. And it's at a certain level of complexity where all of these light waves are going in all of these different directions. That's why when the sun or the stars emit, they emit light as waveforms in a spherical shell coming out in every direction. And if you perceived all that it was, you would be totally incinerated. You would be so brain fried. It would be very overwhelming to you. This is why you only perceive one little section or slice of light that is coming to you from the total time potentials and intelligence potentials that a sun star is emitting. But these are disorganized potentials. And then the whole purpose of this feedback system of creating sensorium feelers and photons and then receiving the information back is that the sun and the stars can fine tune their reality creation and emanation mechanisms. They can get better. If they're narrators writing a script, or like William Shakespeare, like writing a play, and they write the play and they send it out and they have all these things, and then you send back information, you're like, all right, this part was fine, but this part really sucked and I didn't like this part at all. And the sun will listen and then will emit the next edit, the next version of the story that contains some of the original nature of what you experienced, but then some things have been augmented and changed and shifted to be better. You're in this constant rapport with pure light as it is being emanated into or sent on its journey, and you're experiencing light on its journey, and then you're sending light information back to the sun and the stars about what you're experiencing so that it can do better. The sun is plasma, and it is only semi-organized, and what it is doing is organizing itself to be able to create beams of light. In my graph, that's all the way at the side. The most organized thing you can be is a beam of light. And that's when, as a waveform, all of the peaks and all of the troughs fit together, and it has a longevity to it. When you have an ordinary flashlight and it has a cone of light, the cone of light spreads out like this and it dissipates. Like if you're holding your flashlight, you can see 6 feet or 10 feet, but not like 22,000 miles, because the light dissipates due to its disorganized nature. A laser is organized light. All of the peaks and all the troughs are together in a beam. And if you sent a laser beam outward from you, it could go 22,000 miles. It could go all the way to the moon. It could go all the way to, another time place. As long as it is not acted upon by some opaque level of matter, that light would simply continue onward and keep going and going and going, because it is organized and it does not lose energy. So I'm talking here about what is eternal life, what is eternal existence. It is when you become a part of the organized presence of light across all time, space, and dimensionality, and there is no loss of signal, no diminishment at all. So that means there has to be a resolution of whatever is preventing light from returning back home to its origins or to going to a black hole as an exit point from reality. So this would be something that's like a little catch-all a way station, something that keeps light but doesn't allow light to flow. It's just an unnamed box, but it exists somehow because there is some aspect of light not going to where it needs to go. But I need to finish thoughts. One of the thoughts is, okay, the sun or the star emits light. Light can go on its journey, can interact with nothing, and just go on its journey endlessly. The particle of light can go on its journey, and it also has the option of interacting with some form of matter, which is light, which means light interacts with itself. When light interacts with itself, there is a consciousness event. And that consciousness event then causes the shrinking in of the time loop. And that is a sensory event that the sun star uses to be able to sense something happened in the world and can then get feedback on the something that happened. Light can also travel on its journey and go into a black hole that is not the black hole of the original light organism that emitted it, the original sun star, but a different black hole. A black hole that is the total state of inward deformation of a different sun star that came to the end of its stage of consciousness where it had to evolve to the next stage of endlessly going inward. Black holes could be considered portals that light information can take out of this level of reality and into another level of reality. But if your sun star is over here, and you have traveled a vast distance, even though I know we're not talking about space-time when you use my model, but you have gone all the way through time and space and are now in a different position, and your star collapses, then you might not be able to make it back to your star in order to exit this level of reality. That particle of light can go through a different black hole. This happens all the time, guys. There are black holes that are in the sky that are in existence, and light has been emitted or is on its journey from a different star, and it comes from this star over here, and it goes into this black hole over here. But in almost all of these circumstances, the light comes back to its destination. These are all different doorways for the light to come back to its destination, all right? And only if there is some aberration, which is what, I don't make this class about exploring those aberrations in detail, but I would just acknowledge it, that exists in the world that can make some light not go to where it is supposed to. When you encounter an aberration like that as a light worker or a person who is rectifying the time field, let me drink. What you want to do is send the light to where it needs to be, but not send the box or the container or the thing that is slowing something down to any place else. This is very, very big because part of the challenge is things that are hijacking the flow of light to make it a non-perfect system, to mean that there is some loss of signal and it's not a perpetual motion machine. And we don't want those aspects of consciousness that are non-eternal consciousness that are slowing down the journey of light, making it a non-eternal journey. We don't want them to go back to the sun and the stars or to accelerate to light speed, because those things should not exist. That was a lot of words. I hope you could parse your way through it. But basically, not everything belongs at light speed. Definitely not things that are slowing down light to be totally slowed down and no longer functional. So now let's talk a little bit about what is a Bose-Einstein condensate. Go to my whiteboards. I guess I'll put this. Okay, cool. Grab my thing. Bose-Einstein condensate is, let's choose a color. This stuff over here where I'm scribbling in green, it is even more dense than a solid. What happens in a Bose-Einstein condensate is not only are all of these molecules or atoms or riders of the Tokyo subway station, not only are they crammed in there shoulder to shoulder, but what if you literally made them all like sit on top of each other and occupy the same place? That's what happened. Every single one of these guys is like, you're sitting on top, you're sitting on top, you're sitting on top, you're sitting on top. Total overlapping of all of these things. And what you also have at the same time that you are creating a total overlapping of the mass structures of all of these different atoms or molecules. You have a removal of heat. So here I am showing arrows of red going away from there because I want you to know that just as every single one of these stages over here means you're getting faster, more heat, light, energy is adding in faster, 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 faster until you get up to a beam. Tons and tons and tons of heat, light, energy, and information and intelligence that has been added to matter to turn it into a beam of light. When you get to the left of that squiggly line in this diagram over here, you get to the total removal of heat, light, energy, information from matter and the end result or ramification of that. That is what a Bose-Einstein condensate is. It is a form of matter that is even more dense than a solid. It represents no space in between all these molecules. There's no space in between them. It takes them zero amount of time to travel from point A to point B because they are all overlapping or sitting on top of each other. And there is no heat, no light information movement. So over here, I talk about a gas and I talk about the dance that is happening with the molecules bouncing into each other, and they don't just randomly create friction, but that they're creating this whole complex dance. Over here in the Bose-Einstein condensate, there is no dance and there is no intelligence being expressed in the movement of those molecules. In fact, not only is there no movement in terms of space, but there's no movement in terms of time. I'll get to your comment question in a moment. Thank you so much for being here. This over here does not exist in time. I was giving you the whole rundown about how you're a third dimensional being and you're experiencing a timeline that's collapsed waveforms from the fifth dimension and higher. All of this stuff over here moves through time. The dance of molecular energy represents movement through time as well as expression of space. But the Bose-Einstein condensate does not move through time. It doesn't move at all. So it's not like you would just see a big giant hunk of junk like standing there doing nothing and be like, oh, look at that. That's Bose-Einstein condensate. It's totally frozen, doing nothing. It is so frozen that it is frozen in time. It does not flow through time. It does not go from moment to moment. If I drew those, green box cars here, if I drew whatever, a series of green boxes along the bottom of your page over here, and that represents a timeline going like this, and that, you can move one moment per moment through that timeline, and it's the molecular movement of heat that propels you through that experience of time. The Bose-Einstein condensate has zero heat. It has zero intelligence. Let's write a 0 to show that it is at 0 degrees Kelvin. Can I draw a K? So my pen is very hard to write with here. 0 degrees Kelvin. It is at absolute zero. That means that there is no molecular movement, no heat, light, intelligence. There is no sentience there. There is no self-awareness there. There is no motivation. So in all of these other states of matter, you have intelligence and light that is becoming more intelligent. But over here, what you have is the full removal of all intelligence until you have something that is matter that contains zero intelligence. And it does not move through time. And what that would look like to you is something that pops out of existence. Like if I was holding up my pen in this thumbnail and all of a sudden it popped out of time, popped out of existence, you simply would not see it anymore. So you would not be, again, to emphasize, looking at a Bose-Einstein condensate and be like, well, look at that there. That looks like a Bose-Einstein condensate. It's not moving at all. It's totally frozen. Like, you would not be able to see it because it is totally frozen, because it has no molecular movement through time. Now let's go back to my other whiteboard. Wait, I should do questions first. And then, but I want to go to my other whiteboard and talk about the primordial nature of light at the existence. But first, Charlie B says, Is the Bose-Einstein condensate like an infinite comfy chair, like is used to bound a molecule, or is the no energy overlap outside the fabric of existence? And then Charlie B says, oh, you answered it. It does not exist in time. I love it when that happens because I'm telepathic. So I'm very pleased that I already, yeah, he says, LOL. By achieving 0 degrees Kelvin, the Bose-Einstein condensate makes pooties. Okay. Makes pooties okay? Makes pooties okay. I think I get what you're saying there. Yes. The entropic state of having no movement through time and having 0 amount of heat, intelligence, or self-sentience is the positive resolution to anything that would be considered a consciousness residue that we call a putti from one of my other classes, a pesky occupier of the interstices, or anything that would be like you have a heat sink or an energy sink or a light sink, something that contains light but doesn't allow light to flow on its journey. So for example, if light comes into you, either you eat an avocado or light comes into your eyeball, then you do stuff. And you either say words like, light is coming out of my mouth right now, and I'm transmitting light to you. Light came into me and I'm transmitting it to you. The light didn't stay stuck in me. Or I ate an avocado and now I'm like walking on my treadmill over here and I'm translating my avocado back into heat, light, kinetic movement and cognitive stuff. But what if I ate an avocado and I just, greedily kept it to me and I'm like, no molecules, no electrons, you're not going, get back here, electrons, you're not going anywhere, you're sticking with me. Then those electrons would be robbed of their experience because they are supposed to come to me, flow through me, and then continue on the path of light somewhere. And if I prevent them from doing that, then they don't get to keep going to their somewhere. And if you do that with enough light, then there's a poverty, there is a diminishment of the overall system and circumstance. And Charlie B says, okay, is 0 degrees Kelvin. Got it. Oh, it was a joke. I didn't get it. It makes the pooties okay. It makes the pooties 0 degrees K. That is exactly what happens. We want to make these aberrations 0 K, and that is the solution for them. So this is a story for light workers because a lot of light workers think, look at these naughty things. I'm an innocent light worker right now. Look at these naughty things. They're making a lot of trouble in the world. I better send them to the light. And I'm like, don't send them to the light. Don't give them a free lunch. That means a total energizing aspect of giving them lots and lots of light to accelerate them. Take all light away from them. They shouldn't get money. Like, here's $1 million. Here's a bunch of cash. Go to light speed. We should take all the money away from them. We should reclaim all of the money from these things or light from these things that really should not be sustained in their existence. And in drawing energy away from them and bringing them into a state of frozenness and stillness, there is a resolution that means that we don't have the distortion or distressing of what should be a perfect flow of light energy with no loss of signal. Cheeky's right here. We need you guys to know Cheeky is right here. She's playing with her toy. She's being a little inappropriate right now, and she will get a snack. So hold on a second. Time to bribe Cheeky. Brief pause. And Aurelia is appreciating Charlie B's joke. Good job. And Aurelia says, it really helps clearing out the astral that way. Totally. She says, my astral space is now empty and easier to get through to higher experiences. More of the time, I'm taking back of the light from what is disharmonic. Beautiful. So the astral realm would be defined as a realm of pure cognitive light, not necessarily optical light, but it is a world of pure thought forms. Light equals sentience. Light equals awareness. Light equals intelligence. The astral realm would be considered a realm of thought forms and potentials and concepts. But the problem is when it gets full of do concepts, things that are not truthful, erroneous light, false light. So if I say something like false light or erroneous light, you're like, Aurora, that is an oxymoron. I'm like, I know. But that's the world that we're dealing with. And that's why I like to do Path of Light, because just for a little while, I don't have to talk about things that technically don't make sense. Like, how can that thing even be in existence? It is false light. Light should be the expression of divine mind. There should not even be anything that is considered false light or erroneous information. We should live in an information-rich environment that is 100% information and accuracy and 0% mistakes or lies or crapola doo-doo that shouldn't be in existence. Joyce is giving us a beautiful comment. Says, I respect and appreciate you, Professor. Thank you. And says, thank you for being you. Love you and Cheeky too. Thank you. Thank you guys always for the love and celebration. And thank you for loving and celebrating Cheeky as well. She's definitely on the path of light, and her dog food is solidified light going inside of her. I know. So wait, now let me return, and I'm going to go to more questions and comments. Don't worry, but I have a big agenda, and always read my notes and do your homeworks, because the homework whiteboards, of course, are always more descriptive than all the things that I'm saying here, even if I talk here for 3 hours. But and I think they're very well done. Even though when you watch those whiteboards, I can tell that you're watching me stumbling over my words, because it was 2 years ago and I was still trying to figure out like how to even put these things into words. Now I've been talking about this for 2 years and I have definitely figured out better languaging, but you'll hear all the different ways that I pause and I'm like, oh, how do I talk about this? So thank you for your love and compassion for me while I'm even trying to find my voice to be able to talk about this stuff. So now let's go back over to this area here where we want to talk about light and molecular bonding. Let me choose a better color. Molecular bonding. So this is like dun dun boom 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 boom. You just had the Big Bang. Just had the Big Bang. This is the in terms of science, cosmology, just had the moment of the creation of all of these atoms and the potential for complex matter, but it is not yet in the form of matter. It is just, there is light everywhere, and the light is informing the atoms what to do. That's big stuff here. All of this light is not just an energy impulse, it is informing matter, and it tells matter what it needs to do. So light has its own volition and its own agenda. And in this level of time experience, there was a lot of light. I'll scare you by doing the overall scribbling. This is how much light there was. There was totality of light. So let's say that's 100% light. But then what happened was we got even more light, because the light started to tell these little individuated atoms that they needed to start to get together and to create molecules. So now let's draw a cross-section of the microscopic layer of the fabric of space-time when you get molecular bonding. I should draw it in a better way, because it's not perfectly straight like that. That's when there's no molecules. When you start to get molecules, you start to get these little microgravity wells that are places where molecules can actually go into a lower energy state and bond together. So you can see some of these I'm intentionally making deeper. This is a lower energy state than this one over here that is a medium energy state. And now let's take as the example here is one carbon atom, and I'm always going to use black as the color for carbon atom. And then I'll choose 2 oxygen atoms over here to represent the potentials for carbon dioxide. So right now, they're not bonded. They're at that neutral level, precariously at the edge of a cliff, but not bonded together. That's what this level of reality is. You got a bunch of carbon, got a bunch of oxygen. How do you make carbon dioxide, which is a necessary ingredient for photosynthesis? This will be for next week. Do your homework, and then you will not be overwhelmed. But basically, the chemical equation for how to do photosynthesis is CO2 plus H2O plus light equals glucose. And we'll do the whole mechanics of that next week. In order to do that, you need CO2. These are the ingredients for CO2 right here. How is CO2 made? And the answer is light. So when science talks about this, just like it talks about this as being just some dead, stupid star hanging out, illuminating things in the sky, it talks about this process of molecular bonding as just like it having light, like saying that the light goes into my tea kettle in the morning. It's just like random, dead, stupid light. It doesn't matter. It's not, it's interchangeable. And I'm like, it's not interchangeable. It is specific. There's a specific beam of organized light consciousness that comes into this situation over here. And it says, hey, you're going to jump down into this lower energy state. And you guys are also going to jump down into this lower energy state. And you are both going to do what I call getting into the comfy chair together. So like if you have like, you know, big, puffy, comfortable, soft chair, and you get in, you sit down, and then like, so you sit down in the chair, and then what happens is like your cat comes along. It's like, oh, you look comfy. I will jump on your lap. And then your dog comes along. Your dog is like, oh, you guys both look comfy. I'm going to jump on your lap too. And what happens as a result is you all get swooshed together in this lower energy state. So now I'm going to draw what a carbon dioxide molecule looks like. We got one carbon and two oxygens, and they all get smooshed together as an end result of this warpage or deformation of the fabric of space-time itself. You could think about it as like they jump off the cliff and they dive downward. You can also think about it in terms of the gravity well. When you have satellites around the sun and they are held in their position by the warpage of the fabric of space-time. These are not random couplings, that happen. These are very, very intentional. And so what you have to now comprehend is that the light comes and speaks to these different forms of existence, and it gives them a directive that says, become this molecular structure. Non-random, receives the directive from light, which is intentional and has a volition. And when these atoms get into the comfy chair, what happens? Light is emitted. Light is emitted. Light comes out of that molecular bonding process. So yes, it takes the impetus of light to create the molecular bonding process. But when those atoms bond together as molecules, what happens is light is liberated. Oh, because you want to say when light gets stuck as matter, light is trapped. I'm like, no, light is not trapped when light is stuck as matter. When light is slowed down into matter, light is liberated. And I said to you, let's say this state of non-bonded atomic structure represents 100% of light. But if you then are light and you tell these atoms to group together and create molecules and it emits light, then what do you have? Then you have like 110% light or 210% light. You get more light. Mommy, daddy, why was molecular complexity invented? And the answer is little Johnny or little Susie, because it made more light. All of this molecular complexity gives more light. The whole entire situation that you're in right now is a light amplification and light generation. I will not say machine, but I will say apparatus. An apparatus for not just flowing light around, but for increasing light. Let's change the words. Not just an apparatus for flowing intelligence around, but for increasing intelligence. Not just an apparatus for flowing organization around, but for increasing organization. These molecular bondings that happen increase the light and increase the organization that is happening. So this is, again, just like light doesn't fall into photosynthesis and become imprisoned and be like, help, get me out of here. I just became a part of a leaf and I don't know what to do. Get me on my journey, please. No, light is doing this intentionally. It's like, hooray, I'm going to become a part of photosynthesis to amplify and increase all light everywhere. And same thing with the process of molecular bonding. Light is not like, oh no, like these things are coming together and they're bonding and the light is being stuck. It's like, no, I am doing these bonds intentionally to be able to liberate light. Now, because it might be counterintuitive. You're like, well, wait a minute, doesn't it take energy to stick things together? I'm like, no, actually, when you stick things together, it liberates energy. But now let's draw something else. Like let's draw one oxygen. Sorry. Yeah, here's, sorry, I'm doing it wrong. I don't want to confuse you. Yeah, doing it right. Trust myself. This blue dot represents oxygen. And then these two little red dots represent hydrogen. Class, what is H2O? You're very smart. You're like, it's water. I'm like, correct. H2O is water. So I just drew a water molecule. And it's down here in the comfy couch, nestled together, everybody on top of everybody's lap. And in order to unbond those molecules and those atoms from sticking together, what you have to do is you have to add light. In order to add light, I'm sure you guys do this. I'm not the only person that does this. I'm going to draw this to represent fire underneath the water. I'm going to put it on top of some fire. I'm going to boil some water. I'm going to add heat, light, energy, information to it. So in order to get the molecules apart, what you're doing is adding light to it because you have to kind of like get energy and get momentum to get up out of the comfy chair to split apart to be able to create more complex molecular structures. So if I wanted to do something with this hydrogen and oxygen, like if I wanted to oxidize something, or if I wanted to combust something, or if I wanted to digest something or respirate something in the body, I would have to break apart these molecules. That means that I would have to first put light into the system and have a bunch of light say to these two things, jump up out of the comfy chair. And then what you end up having is here is one molecule over here, sorry, one atom over here. And then here are these two little guys over here. Everybody jumps up out of the comfy chair and everybody goes to their neutral state over here. And then from that neutral state, we could have a completely new combination. Like let's say that I also get my carbon dioxide up and out of the comfy chair. But get up, stop being lazy, get up out of that comfy chair. So now here's my carbon over here. And then here's my two oxygens over here. And now that all these guys are up and out of their comfy chair, we can make them do all sorts of interesting things. We can make all of these guys get into a completely new comfy chair and create completely new molecular structures. And that is what happens in glucose. In glucose production, you actually end up having like your carbons and your hydrogens and some of your oxygens go into the comfy chair together. But then what also happens is you have some of your oxygens are liberated. They're liberated women and they fly off and find new partners and do whatever they want to do. I will go through that structure and that equation in depth next week. Do your homework. That way you will be prepared for it. But basically what happens is light is applied to atoms that are bonded and stuck together and splits those atoms apart, molecular unbonding. And then those atoms are stuck together like puzzle pieces into new formats, which then emits more light and allows for greater levels of complexity. All right. I knew that this would be confusing, which is why I didn't want to dump too much upon you at once. But just big takeaways are that the process of molecules coming together, atoms coming together, atoms coming together to form molecular bonding, and then unbonding, and then rebonding into even greater levels of molecular complexity, all involves the continuum of light. And that is what is happening in the process of photosynthesis for glucose to be produced by the wizardry and genius organization that is happening on the surface of a leaf. On the surface of a leaf, carbon dioxide, water, and light interact to be able to create these complex structures for storing light that we know as glucose. And then when you ingest plants or the animals that eat plants, and you are able, through the process of your digestion, but more specifically through the activity of the membranes of your mitochondria, you are able to liberate the electrons from the atoms in those molecularly bonded structures. You then have energy to do things like talk about stuff and walk on treadmills. And that is the re-emission. I can say liberation, but it is really the re-emission of light. And that in a perfectly pristine system, there's no loss of light. So all of the light that is being sent out on its journey by all of these sources of light, which are sun stars, all eventually find their way back home. That is the path of light. That is the journey of light. Okay, so we're not done with class, but let's just rewind. Let's get to questions and comments because I'm sure I already went past a bunch of different things. Okay, all right. Okay. Oh, beautiful. Wait, let's get all the way back to the beginning and make sure I didn't miss anything important. Oh, this is beautiful. Charlie B says, regarding these teachings and unique insights, they are exactly consistent with what Ken Wheeler describes regarding behavior of magnetism and the dielectric plane. Beautiful. So I'm not familiar with Ken Wheeler, and so I probably should look into that, but I'm very, very pleased for that validation, because I told you everything for me is coming from my direct insight. So I'm very, very pleased to hear that. So for example, like how did I learn about molecular bonding and heat and photosynthesis? I sent out my tendril of attention and I touched on a bunch of plants and I learned about what they were doing as they were photosynthesizing. And I put my kettle on in the morning and I sent out my tendril of attention to the water and to the natural gas that is making the flame underneath my kettle. And I comprehended from that what was happening. And I sent out my tendril of attention to an actual like candle flame to be like, what is happening when something is burning? And then I also, for next week and afterwards, the lessons about artificial light or tertiary light, like a light bulb or a fluorescent light tube, I sent out my tendril of attention to them. And I'm like, okay, what is this stuff doing? So that is how I've been able to build this worldview and to share it with you. And the big takeaway from today and moving forward in your existence is that light is a continuum of light that is moving at different rates through time. And that your journey of self-awareness and spiritual attainment has to do with that remembrance and recontextualization of yourself. You are light that is moving through these various rates, through different levels of time, and you re-achieve light speed and reclaim yourself as light through the cognitive recognition of what you're doing. My words, oh, they always, I'm saying this thing, but then I'm like, these words don't make any sense. Like it's so hard. It's so hard. But at a certain point, you will re-establish yourself at light speed and beyond. And so will everything else that is at light speed and beyond. And you will not be surrounded by anything that is not at light speed and beyond. You will only be surrounded by everything that is moving at light speed and beyond. You will be light in a sea of light, with nothing that is not light all around you. And that is, it's not like you're going to have any context. I spoke about this last week, where it's like you might be moving super fast, but something else is super slow. And you're like, see you suckers. I feel like I'm getting by really fast. I'm like Superman, I'm running so fast. And you're like slow, plodding along and be like, you're not made of light at all. It's like, no, actually what happens when you reach these levels of attainment and you're on the path of light as a portion of light in the continuum of light, all that exists is light. That's what happens. So you're not going to have to be like, what do I do with all this stuff that's not light? Everything is light. But that does not mean that when you look around, like the flawed world of new age shadow work, can't just look around at everything and be like, everything is light. Because again, right now in this world, what you're experiencing are some loss of signal and some things that are not that cannot be accurately interpreted as part of the continuum of light. Which is why to teach this curriculum, we have to divorce ourselves entirely from reality. Come be here in my classroom of escapism for a brief amount of time each week. But it's because what I'm teaching is the corrected viewpoint of reality. And when you achieve this corrected viewpoint of reality, there's really nothing that is incorrect. That's like saying you become a total information accuracy within a sea of accurate information, and there is no wrong math, and there is nothing that doesn't make sense, and you're only surrounded by things that are comprehensible and that make sense. Okay. So Charlie B also goes on to say, so I am absolutely convinced that Aurora describes the truthful underpinning of what we observe in our surface world physics and in the underground Black project technologies. Thank you for that recognition. And yes, you're truthful. So let's give a little bit of a shout out to dark projects everywhere. Dark projects are ways that humans have found, mostly through retro engineering and being exposed to little like tidbits of truthfulness, different ways that can be applied to like effery, hurting us, screwing people, to exploiting situations and doing naughty things. I'm shaking my finger here, like being very, very naughty. What I teach is a comprehensive worldview and the value system that is needed to achieve that comprehensive worldview. The dark project and a lot of what the very pathogenic consciousnesses in your world right now are doing, they're like, okay, yeah, that's all really great, but can I use it to hurt someone? Can I use it to secure the power objective of my nation state? Can I use it to imprison someone else? And all of those are like wrong motivations. So not the right ways to learn in the classroom of life, but we have to recognize that there are some very naughty individuals that when you can bring them cosmic truth and they're really only interested in how can I use that to diminish others' freedom or to exploit others or to solidify their own power or the power of the organizations that they represent. So all of that is flawed motivation. What should happen is a recognition and an embracing of yourself on the journey of meta liberation, which is your own reattainment of light, speed, and beyond. But I also told you that when you do that, there is not anything that has not attained. So when you reach meta liberation and those levels of light, speed, and attainment, you will be surrounded by 100% everything else that has also attained that speed and that level of truthfulness, divine intelligence, and accuracy. And you will not have anything to compare yourself to or to recognize or interact with that is not at that level. The only stuff that will be there is stuff that's supposed to be there and stuff that is moving at super fast light speeds and is made of light and is made of intelligence. And you will not have anything that is either flawed, mistaken, or anti-intelligence. And the stuff that you're mostly interacting with in this world right now is a lot of flawed, mistaken, and anti-intelligence to the point of exhaustion. I can't take it anymore. But that stuff exists. We do talk about it because I'm not in denial. But the most effective pathway to your liberation has to do with, for a moment, disengaging from the erroneous nature of those things that are aberrances in your existence and just forming a comprehensive viewpoint of what it is to be in light. And this is also in truthful, harsh criticism of any dualistic viewpoint that says you have to have dark to appreciate light. I'm like, no. You do not have to have anti-intelligence to appreciate intelligence. You do not have to have lies in order to appreciate truth. You do not have to have lies in order to learn what is truth. You do not have to have, non-sentience in order to experience sentience yourself. Like, you don't need that. This is a huge dualistic flaw from biology, but also from cultural paradigms. Because yes, if you looked at the night sky without the darkness that is in between the points of brilliance, you would simply see all light everywhere. if you simply perceived the emanating shells of spherical light that come outward continually from all stars everywhere, you would just see a giant ocean of waveforms. But you're imagining that you'd be like, oh my God, it's too much light. Please show me some darkness for contrast. But you would not feel that way. You would feel like, wow, that's all a lot of truth. Like if you went into a library where everything was spelled correctly and was grammatical, you wouldn't be like, oh, it's too much information. All of these words are spelled correctly. Somebody please give me some gibberish. You'd be like, wow, this is 100% truthful information. That is the goal. When you achieve light speed, what happens is you are a miracle submerged in a sea of miracles, pure light submerged in a continuum of light. There, everything around you is informative and spelled correctly, and you do not need, want, or desire anything that is incorrect or incorrectly spelled in order to somehow have a bastion of comparison for yourself, to create some kind of foundation of your existence, to be able to know, like, how do I know what's this versus this? Like, you can navigate, please, girl, take my word for it. You can navigate fine without any of these lies and falsehoods and false light around you. In fact, you can navigate even better, because I talked about that in last week's class. From that perspective, you do not have to have a personalized sense of ownership of light or a sense of a commodification of light. So, for example, for here to be a part of this class, I request an energy exchange and or a donation or a tuition, where I say, I'm emitting light from my mouth and I'm giving you ideas. And these ideas came to me from the sun and the stars, but I'm going to ask that people give me some light, information, energy, awareness back to me in the form of physical goods or money. So that way I can pay for my Zoom software or whatever, buy avocados at the store. But in the higher levels of embodiment, I wouldn't be proprietary about the light that comes to me at all. I'd be like, oh yeah, guys, I just received all these information from the sun and the stars, and now I'm emitting it to you. And you'd be like, wow, we're getting a bunch of light information from Aurora. Thank you, this is great. And then you would spread light information to where you are. Because of course, we would be in a completely different non-materialistic world where we would not have to be sustained by things that you pay for with money. We wouldn't have the money system, and we probably would be directly sustained by energy and not require either food or water to be able to make the body, sustainable. So I could express my natural innate generosity by simply saying oh yeah, I just got a bunch of light. Here's a bunch of light. And also knowing that as I emit or send this light on its journey, I will immediately receive more light. That's not that's it. Those are my only good ideas that I ever had ever. I'm out of good ideas and there's nothing more to be said. No, of course not. If you're a musician, maybe people worry about this. They're I just wrote this song, but it's a pretty good song. But what if I never have a good idea again? What if I never write another good song again? I better make some money off of this song. But when you're a part of the continuum of light, you're not worried about where is the next light coming from, because light is defined by its continual flow. You are part of a continuum of light intelligence that is continually flowing, and there will always be more light to sustain you in moving forward. So just to circle back, the dark projects, black ops and technology that is used, a lot of these are employing a partial understanding or a comprehension of what 0 point is or what the infinity point is, a partial comprehension of what light speed is and how that relates to either light speed communications or faster than light communications, and also some of this bending and folding of the fabric of space-time, that these are all miracles of our world that are not meant to be exploited. They are meant to be celebrated and embodied. But the power structure and power abusers of this world are okay, cool. This is a cool natural phenomenon. Can I use it to get rich or exploit a bunch of people or make people listen to me or make people kiss my ass or whatever it is? And all of those are wrong motivations. So when we learn, and what I share here is really, again, a total worldview, an elevation of your total comprehension of the story of reality, or how light, where life comes from. I wouldn't say where light comes from, but really what are the origins of consciousness, and big picture questions about existentialism, like why are you here? Where did the world come from? How did it come into being? And why are you here? And I speak about those things in a very celebratory way as abstractions, because I'm like, I just think it's cool to think about these things. And this is what my mind is very happy thinking about. And yeah, if you're ever, like I said, swinging in your hammock, or, hanging out, or just can't sleep or whatever, think about these things, because I think that they're amazing. But I don't really think that I should say to people, like, learn about this stuff in my class so that you can, like, build a big bomb or whatever, solidify your power structure or something like that. But believe me, there's plenty of dark technology that's being developed for exactly that purpose. But I'm not in alignment with those guys, and I'm not okay with them at all. Waxy says, my tea bag I'm just now drinking says, are not flowers the stars of the earth very beautiful? And that tea, as hot tea, is more intelligent than just a regular room temperature glass of water. You're actually putting greater levels of intelligence into your body by drinking hot tea or hot soup than if you drank something that was at room temperature. I know, we're going to do it. We're going to do it. We're going to do it. Aurelius says, dandelions are actually a favorite of mine for many reasons. They reminded me one day of continual life. Something, when we get past the cultural interpretation structures about what are beautiful plants, what are ugly plants, what are weeds, what are this, what are that, you get into this mindset of miraculism. That's not a word, but I just made it up. But you're like, this plant is a miracle. Like, even, whatever, like a tiny piece of moss growing outside. You're not like, this stupid moss, whatever, like, clean it off. It's junking up the place. You're like, this is a miracle. Yes, being able to perceive the complexity of the plant world as if it is the validated miracle that it is big, because plants are intelligent and they have their own consciousness, but is different than animalistic intelligence. And humans are mostly like animalistic intelligences, and plants are defined by they're staying in one place. Like, you're, as an animal, defined by, like, you have 2 feet and you walk around and you do all sorts of things. You're super energetic. Plants are different than you, and they're moving at a different time scale, and they have different expertise of what they're doing, but they're geniuses. They're wizards and they are geniuses, and we need to come to comprehend and appreciate that about them. Yes. Okay, good. I got to that question already. Good joke. Got to that already. All right. Yeah, so good job on clearing out your astral. Good job there. And Charlie B says, regarding technology and flawed motivations, absolutely agree with Aurora's summary. Quite often, technology motivations are tricks to fool your friends. Yes. And how do I weaponize this tidbit of truth? Yes. And these things always eventually blow up in your face. Yes. Illustrates the fundamentally flawed value system motivating these technological pursuits. Absolutely. When you're at the stage of being pure light, like psychopathology, it's just nonsense. It doesn't even make sense. Like, even from this perspective of where we are here, the desire to control another person's behavior or to limit or subvert consciousness, it just doesn't even make sense to me on an innate level as who I am now. But it definitely doesn't make sense when you get to the level of being at light speed, when you're on the continuum of light, because you identify with all light everywhere. And so you really do want to maintain this perfect, frictionless, balanced system of light, and you joyfully participate in it because it feels so good and it feels so right. And why would you not want to experience that? It's also eternal life, eternal consciousness, eternal goodness, or eternal righteousness. And I'll just give a small, brief shout out to psychopathology, but a lot of psychopathology and death has to do with people not wanting to, or organisms not wanting to exist eternally because they are so crappy. They are so admittedly to themselves, self-admittedly crappy and inadequate that they're like, I don't want to live for forever. Like, I just want to like run around and make a bunch of, trouble, exploit a bunch of consciousnesses, poop all over, and then die or go out of existence somehow. And that motivation is to get to my whiteboard over here. That motivation is for an organism that is going in this direction. So I just drew the arrow facing from levels of greater organization over here, a beam of light. Do you understand? You have the Big Bang, or you have the continual Big Bang, 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 and you start out at a 100% light speed, intelligence level over here as a beam. And these pathological tendencies are actually the tendency to make something go slower and slower and slower and slower until really the only end result can be over here, pooping out, going kaput, becoming nothing, and becoming nothing moving at 0 miles per hour. That's what psychopathology is. And to me, it's incomprehensible because I am on this journey. I'm like, wow, I have molecular solid material over here, and I am moving to light speed. I'm getting energized. I'm getting faster. I'm getting more intelligent. And from the other whiteboard that I shared with you, and from some of the existential answers to some of your existential questions, I'm like, why are we here? To get faster, to get more light, to get more intelligence. So you're starting out already pretty intelligent and pretty full of light. And then through your experiences here, where there is an interplay of light that becomes matter, that then becomes light again, and all of this broadcast back as a consciousness experience, get smarter. So what you have is light that goes on its journey, and through photosynthesis becomes a part of the material realm. And then through either combustion, oxidation, or your own respiration and digestion, that light then continues on its journey. And the amazing thing about light being stored up and not moving in a flowing state is that you can move it from time space to time space. So let's say you chop down a tree and you store up all of that dead wood and store up glucose as firewood. You could store it up for several years. And then you could also put it on a boat and transport it thousands of miles. Then you could build a campfire or a torch out of it, and you could send that light on its journey again. That's very, very different than if you simply had the sun star send the light on its journey and it just went on its journey. When you are able to solidify light as matter, you press pause on that journey, and then you send it on the journey again. You're adding levels of complexity to the overall structure and making possible things that would not have been possible initially. So I have to say this because people from their embodiment anthropomorphic experience are kind of like looking for escapism, looking for the way to get out of their bodies, looking at the bodies as a prison, experiencing diseases and other forms of discomforts in the body, and are blaming materialism and saying what the problem is? The problem here is matter itself, and I need to get out of the world of matter. And that even relates to the ancient philosophy known as Gnosticism. Gnosticism was from or was active at a time like 2,000 years ago in the time of early Christianity. And one of the hallmarks of the Gnostics was a presumption of, or a definition of, the embodiment world that you're in as being inherently evil. Inherently, like it's inherently bad, it's inherently wrong. You are separated from God, the divine nature, by being in embodiment, and everything about embodiment is pure crap. And what you want to do is get out of embodiment. And that, unfortunately, that philosophy it denies or rejects the gift of experience. Like when I am here in life and I'm a walk-in and everything is novel to me, but also I have a great reverence for my life and for the gift of being in embodiment. And when, again, I'm putting the kettle on in the morning, I'm like, this is a miracle. I put the kettle on and it's like, dun dun, boom, 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 massive, amazing stuff is happening here. You're like, yeah, I'm boiling some water. I'm like, no, massive, amazing things are happening. And also, I just ate my breakfast before, or my lunch before class here today, and I got glucose in my body, and I'm like, dun dun, boom, 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 boom. This glucose is amazing. A miracle is happening in my bloodstream right now. I'm able to walk on a treadmill and to do stuff. Like that is the optimum attitude to being here in the world. And so a lot of what I'm trying to portray to you is my amazement and celebration of the miraculous nature of the materialistic world. So objective materialist science, it kind of takes the magic and the miraculous nature out of the experience of being in matter. It just matter is just a bunch of dead, stupid stuff. It's just a giant glowing ball of gases in the sky. And you're going to die one day and all these things. And I am just trying to give you a different worldview. And then also the connective experiences between where you presently are and that worldview, so that way you can get to the ultimate levels of liberation and return to light speed. And you will never regret it. So like you're working hard here in the workout, in the gym of your brain. And you're like, Aurora, like, I'm tired. You're making me work very hard. I'm like, I know, but you will not regret it because you will start seeing the strength training is working. Your muscles are growing. And so here's what I'm going to go through the rest of your questions and then we'll wrap up class. But when you walk along or when you drive along, I want you to drive safely. Don't run into any pedestrians, but I want you to look at all these trees and be like, God, like these trees are geniuses photosynthesizing and doing miracles all over the place. And then they are beaming those miracles and some of the end result of their miraculous behavior at me. That's when you eat a salad, I want you to be like, I'm about to eat a bowl full of miracles. And then the miracles will add to the light quotient in my own individual body. Just begin to recalibrate. Make your coffee or your tea in the morning as a miracle, adding heat, light, energy to the molecular structure of water so that you can be more intelligent. All right. Michael says, hi, first time here. Thank you. Super interesting class. Thank you for your super interesting class. You're very welcome. I'm glad you found my stuff. Michael goes on to say, I was curious, and forgive me if this is not appropriate for this class. Well, let's see how inappropriate it gets. Says, heat is light and our emotions generate heat. Is the possibility of ancient concurrent Atlantis due to distorting of our current timeline as a result of excess heat from a history of bellicosity and distortions towards money and power and prestige? Is totally appropriate. So thank you for being sensitive to that in asking about this question. And I would say that no, the distortions that emanate from ancient Atlantis that have influenced us to the point of this level of divinely disconnected, being our consciousness disconnected from the divine, being in a realm of mortality and being in a realm of materialism and limitation was not due to heat distortions or something that is that level of imbalance. It's 100% due to technology. So technology, I don't know where to put it on the spectrum when we're talking here about light and about intelligence and about the flow of information in a continuum of light, because technology is part of the disturbed realm that we find ourselves with, the non-pristine realm. It is part of when you send out 10 units of light and you only receive 9 units back. Technology is not sentient. In fact, it is anti-awareness. I have huge issues. You can say, we know overall you have huge issues, but seriously, folks, I have huge qualms with the use of the word artificial intelligence, because I don't see those systems as being intelligent. I don't see them as being made out of light, even though they're made out of data and information. I see them as being a form of anti-intelligence. And I see technology as also being a form of anti-light, not amplifying light, something that is taken away from the orderliness of how energy should flow in the cosmic infrastructure, and instead adding to or creating disorderliness. So I don't even think of the pseudo-intelligence or artificial intelligence. I call it genuine stupidity. I don't look at these technological systems as being intelligence. I look at them as being really a source of chaos or darkness. And when you start to look at them like that, because mostly people in this time and place, they're like, computers are smart. Computers are like a brain. I ask computers for information and computers tell me things. But if I told you, like, what if you looked at computers as like an obstacle, an opacity, a source of darkness or ignorance, or something that prevents me, I'm the Italian grandma again, prevents light from flowing from one place to another place. Then we start to recontextualize what technology is. Because you might be like, well, wait, like here's a hard drive, and a hard drive can store information, and then I can reactivate it 5 years later. It's helping information to flow. And I'm like, technology is diminishing our ability to re-emit light back to the source that emitted it to us in the first place. So you don't want to just store light like in a log for future combustion. You want to slow down or press pause on light on its journey, but then send it to the place where it's supposed to go to, which is the reconnection to the sun star that emitted it. And if you put a bunch of light into a container, like a hard drive, and it just stayed there and it never went anywhere, you would have a cessation of, or a obstacle of that light on its journey. So actually in the next 2 subsequent classes, I will speak to you about light that comes from a light bulb, light that comes from a campfire, light that is stored up in a book, light that is stored up on a floppy disk, light that is stored as your DNA, light that is stored inside of you as the accumulation of your knowledge. That could be all the songs that you've ever learned, or the oral traditions you've ever learned, or your life experience, and how that light is transmitted into the world. So, do your homework, watch your stuff. So some of what I'm going to speak about is very materialistic in going over the equations of how the molecular rearrangement happens to create the glucose structure that we know of, and then also what combustion looks like. But I'm not going to go from glucose back to energy, because that is like a 13-step enzymatic process that happens at the cellular level. That is so complex that it's not by accident. But it's so much easier for me to talk about combustion. So just to say that more clearly, carbon dioxide plus water plus light equals glucose. That's easy. I can do that one for you very easy. But for me to draw the diagram of what happens for glucose to then be liberated into ATP and electrons that you use in your body to make it into light, again, is way so long. It would be like a 15-hour class. So instead of doing that, I do a simpler one, which is natural gas. That's what I have in my stove in my kitchen over there to be able to make my coffee that's more intelligent than room temperature water. What happens to be able to liberate the light that is stored up in natural gas? It's a much easier and less complex equation to do. So I'm going to talk about those things that are very materialistically based, but I'm also going to talk about other things that are sociological, that have to do with your social emotional presence, your ego structure in the world, and how you receive information in terms of transferring it over vast portions of time. If you write a book, you have stored up light. All alphanumerics represents stored up light. And then that light can be transmitted to 1 year in the future, 5,000 years in the future. Like if you look at, the Torah, these are scrolls that are from 5,000 years ago, and that this light information was written down and transmitted to us in this time now. So these light information transmission over time structures are deep and profound. What happens if you write a book? So I'm not going to answer these questions for right now. I'm just going to plant seeds in your head, because then you all did lots of muscle work and I have to let your muscles rest and recover, and you need to eat protein. But here are some questions to ponder. What happens if you write a book or you put information into a written form and no one ever reads it? Does the light information get stuck there? What about if you put information on a floppy disk and then throw it in a drawer and no one ever puts that floppy disk into a computer? Does the information get stuck there? And then also, how about translating a human body and the information that you contain as your body physical container upon death or the exiting of your consciousness from the material realm? What happens to the light that you contain? All of your thoughts and all of the songs that you learned and all of the stories that you contain, and where does it go to and what happens to it? Because in a perfect system, light doesn't get stuck anywhere. Everything eventually returns home to where it is supposed to go. These are all questions that will be answered in future classes, but you definitely need to take some time to rest your brain. Aurelia says, aha, I love moss as well. And when people take it away, it's nice to walk on barefoot. Moss is beautiful, miraculous, although it is microscopic, and microscopic plants are totally, no one cares about them, but these are microscopic miracles. They are amazing. We're all agreeing. We love walking on moss and what that feels like. Okay, so wait, let's get to this question. Chris says, AI versus OI, organic intelligence. Thank you. I am sensing you are teaching us about original or organic intelligence. Thank you. You're very welcome. And that's exactly what I'm teaching you. So I'm very vocal critic of pseudo-intelligence, anti-intelligence, artificial manufactured intelligence. To me, none of it is real intelligence. To me, all of it is false light, or it's like saying non-food. But you guys do have non-food in this world, call it junk food. There's stuff that's not nourishing, that you should not put in here, that does not count as food. And that's actually a big part of the lessons of what you're learning biologically and as consciousness in this world. In your digestive tract, you have to figure out what is food versus what is doo-doos, what is not food. And then in your life, you have to make a distinction between what are concepts that are, logical and that are nourishing and that make sense to you and that feed your longevity, versus what does not make sense, what is not truthful, what brings you towards an end of life instead of propelling you onwards towards eternal life. So in this world, technology that you have and the concepts that that technology embodies and promotes to you, these are all non-longevity concepts. And if you internalized them, lived their truth, and embraced them, you would have a non-eternal existence. And in order to have eternal existence and return to light speed, you need to not only ditch a lot of the cultural paradigms of what you've been taught, but also ditch almost all the technology that is here that is an obstacle to the attainment of light speed, not a pathway to the attainment of light speed. And Lisa says, thank you for everything. Love you and Cheeky. We are infinity, quantum miracles living inside of miracles. So great. Flying your Boson. You're very welcome, Lisa. Thank you for that beautiful comment. And I will go and hug Cheeky immediately after class. Thank you very much for that. And Chris says, organic intelligence to the third power, original intelligence or organic intelligence using your organic intelligence using your mouth. Organic instrument speech from mouth. Yes, exactly. And I'll also tell you guys, the flapping of my moving mouth parts and alphanumerics and phonetic sound symbols, These all represent really levels of technology, really. So when I talk about technology not being necessary and being an obstacle to pure light and even being an impediment towards the reattainment of your light speed, you have to, at a certain point, be prepared to ditch language. You're going to throw language out the window, and you're not going to have light translated into words and then transmitted to others as words. What you will do is you will beam light directly to another person and receive light directly from another being without the intervention of language. And this is what I'm talking about when I talk about photosynthetic beings who are beaming the color green at you. They are talking to you with color. And because humans have been indoctrinated and rewired to require oral linguistics, that it makes it difficult for you to even recognize that someone or something is talking to you, and also difficult for you to know what is the message. But please know that as you get to greater levels of complexity and a return to your true nature, and as you get faster and get up to light speed and you're taking off all of these biological and cultural projections, at a certain point you'd be like, yes, words are not effective containers for light. Words slow down, diminish, and dilute light. Words were the best Band-Aid coping mechanism that we had for a long amount of time. But now that we are reattaining light speed, we will not speak to each other in words. We will speak through pure impulses of waveform and telepathy, and also receive them from others in pure telepathy. And then when you do that, then you're going to do this. You're going to sit in your lawn chair at night, and you're going to look up at the night sky at these stars, and you're going to have a conversation with them. They're going to be talking to you, but not with small mouth sounds, not in the English language. They will speak to you in the language of pure light. And this system was set up in this way in order to be non-hackable. The system was set up to be like, okay, look, like these guys are going to get embodied, but want to make sure no one gets lost or confused. So make sure that you put a lot of light that's talking to them all the time in the sky that you can't miss, right? And still, what has happened in our world is through the implantation of language filters, and then also now through different atmospheric limitations, particulate stuff, satellite stuff, and the frequency stuff that's in our world. Honestly, you can't hear SHIT. You can't comprehend and hear everything that's being said to us by the stars. It's so frustrating. And that's why, for me, when I was down in San Diego, it's south of where I live, but I was also down in San Diego. I could not hear the information that was coming to me from the stars. I could only see a few stars in the sky at night. And when I sat out there, I didn't hear anything. And I had to get here to where there's less technological interference, where I can actually sit in a receptive state and get this abstract information from the stars. And then what I do is I translate it into words and more accurately into pictures that I can share with you. But all of this that I'm sharing with you, this is like indirect transmission of light. I look forward to the day when I can simply get ideas and information from the stars and be like, okay, this is me just beaming it to your minds. No interface needed, no computer needed, just my mind, light coming out of me directly into you guys. And you guys be like, oh, that's what that is. All right. That'll be a very, very fun day. All right. It'll be totally awesome. Caroline says, I will not allow anyone to walk through my mind with their dirty feet. That's a quote from Gandhi. Thank you. Beautiful quote. And I agree. Let's all agree on that. Elmer says, what are main obstacles? Why such things are taken for granted as if they are random? Does it relate to how AI blocks our sacred timeline, encasing us in the membrane of death? Beautiful question. I think a lot of these limitations or obstacles are cultural and linguistic. They are presumptions that are foisted upon human beings here in infancy and early childhood. I actually think that you come here as an infant and you are a beautiful, divinely connected, like little baby with like so much energy and so much light in your eyes. And that it's the education, learning language as a survival skill, and then the educational process, especially teaching human beings about the scientific materialistic worldview that takes the light out of people. And then also the system of resources, commodification, and materialism and having to work also takes the light out of people. So, when for a long time, I was a professional nanny and babysitter. Like I lived in people's homes and I took care of their little children. That was like, when I first got here as Aurora, but I have beautiful memories. And now those children are probably in college. So it's just been quite an amazing journey. But, and you're probably laughing about like, what was Aurora was your babysitter? Like, what was it like? And I would teach these kids totally all about stars and black holes and all these things. But when I cared for infants, when you're holding this little baby is totally filled with light. This is why babies feel great to hold and hug, because they don't have language yet and they are full of light. They're like a direct conduit to the stars. And you're like hugging them, you're like, oh, stars feel so good. Oh, you feel and you smell so good, And then, like as children are separated from that divine connection and they develop more of their own ego and their own motivations in being here and their own language structure. And then you start to teach them about death and about linear time and about the unfairnesses and injustices in the world, then that is what diminishes the light inside of children. And then there's also social subtle judgments, like when children are being playful, individualistic, and free in their self-expression. Adults who don't have a lot of light inside of them are often like this: stop being that way. Sometimes they say, stop asking questions. Little children are like, I want more light. Can I ask you a lot of questions so you will put more light into me? Or sometimes little kids are like this: I just ate starches and I'm ready to run around because I'm full of light. And the adults are like, stop running around, sit quietly, sit down and shut up. And there's a lot of things that are cultural things that teach children to stop embodying their light and to stop spreading their light. And then this also relates to things when people criticize children. And children used to look in the mirror and be like, I love me and I love me. But then at a certain point, they're told like your skin is not the right color. Your hair is not the right texture. Your face is shaped weird. Nobody likes you. And then it takes away their light. All the self-hatred that children are taught in this world, and that you might relate to this, takes away your light. So how do you get back to your light? Self-love. I want everybody to stand in front of your mirror and to say, I love you. That is one of the most radical things you can do. It literally creates a bridge of light to yourself. And also, I want you to return to your youthful, energetic levels. When you would eat potatoes or ice pops or whatever it is, you would eat light. And then you'd be like, I'm full of light. I want to run around and do stuff now. That is what we all should be doing. And then the other thing is, meditation is the adult portal or pathway to reestablish non-linguistic mental patterns or cognitive habits where you are not talking all the time. So please spend some amount of your time in non-verbalization. And I use music a lot for that for myself. Like, I'm not very good at just like sitting still and not thinking anything as a form of meditation, but I'll do playing music, and I'll put music on my headphones, and I'll just be listening to my music a lot. And I'm in a non-verbal state, and music is light, and I'm just in a sea of light, ingesting and being surrounded by that light. And actually find it a little bit draggy, like it kind of creates, it drags me out of my bliss when I have to talk and when I have to talk a lot. But I'm not in conflict with, giving these lectures. This is like a positive way for me to be able to transmit light to you guys. But I think that you understand what I'm talking about, like non-productive conversations and things that bring you into a verbalized presence that are just not fulfilling. But the activation of your verbalized mind takes you out of the connecting directly to light world. Yeah. So trying to spend as much time as you can in the world of pure light. The world of pure light is a world of abstraction. So I also spend because I got to end class and I got to go paint because look at that light coming across my painting table over there. I spend a lot of time in the abstract action of doing my paintings because again, I find that it helps me to cultivate and grow my light body and my aspects that are made of pure light. Aurelius is working with the collective to recognize and attune to the telepathic light communication. Absolutely. Yes, everybody just needs to level up. I told you when I first came here, and I would be talking to people telepathically, and I didn't understand that they weren't getting it. And then at a certain point, I'm like, these guys aren't getting my telepathic broadcasts at all. I'm like, oh, I'm going to have to like speak about it with my words. And Aurelius says, feel the same with verbalized communication. I can just about manage light language, but I prefer other means like color and telepathy and music. We'll get there, everyone. Don't be too distraught that you have to actually talk about things in the world. For a long time, I was hoping that people would just be able to get my telepathy, but they didn't. And if I didn't speak and create verbal assertions, people were ready to like walk all over me. So I learned like you have to verbally assert, but we'll get to another level where you will have nonverbal perception and you won't have to overtly say what you want or what you desire, and people will sense it from you and expect it. So Suzuki says, I'm having a hard time with that. I've forgotten how I meditate and stay in my heart, but I seem to have forgotten how to generate love for myself. It feels dead. It's true that the world has taught us how to hate ourselves, starting with the family we were raised in. So, Suzuka, thank you for that honest sharing. And I will send you a ton of, protection, positivity, and encouragement. And know that it is possible to reclaim your spark. Like the words that we use even say a lot. If you feel like you lost your spark and you need to get it back, it's like saying you need to get your light back. Really what you need to do is to get back up to light speed, which then is really about reclaiming levels of innocence and empowerment that mostly are related to humans in infancy and early childhood, just because this is such a screwy world that as you grow older, those things are stripped away from you. But we are going to establish a new truthfulness in this world where you get to maintain your light quotient and your connection to light even in adulthood, even more so. And you will be remembered as the generation that made it through some deep, dark, I want to say effery, in order to come through and remember ourselves in the light. So your journey is encouraged and you are recognized for the valor that it takes to go through this very, very dark time. And Aurelia says, yes, I am still getting used to this. And Suzuka says, yes, my eyes are filled with light when I was small. It's true. Absolutely. And you might also need to distance yourself from the individuals, organizations, or sociological tendencies that reduce light in a person. And that can be anything from, things that were cultural paradigms, religious paradigms, criticism from your educational system or from your parents, but then also now technology is the main thing that has been diminishing people's light as just devices of distraction and devices of obfuscation and creating obstacles between yourself and technology itself, between yourself and light itself, and the expectation that technology is required as some kind of an intermediary. Like the expectation that language is required as an intermediary. You don't need language, you don't need technology, and you can connect directly to the sun and the stars and pure light itself in order to be fully sustained. But doing that is like a mastery. We're talking about what it is to become an ascended master in the world. And so some people think like, I'm never going to become an ascended master. Like, give me the easy route. Give me some technology, possibly drugs and surgery, like anything that you can do to augment me. And I'm like, no drugs and surgery, no pharmaceuticals. Like, no, like you do it through your self-cultivation. So I will wrap up class for today by saying thank you so much to all of you as beautiful spiritual athletes who are here doing the heavy lifting to be able to build the muscles so that you can embody more light, have more light flow through you and eventually re-attain light speed. You guys are brave, noble, and heroic, and you're doing exactly the right thing through your natural levels of self-cultivation. And I'll also tell you, I'm so profoundly grateful that you tune into me. You focus your attention on me for several hours to be able to learn about these things. And it's totally my intention for you to eventually be empowered or to be able to have your own eye of insight connect directly to the sun and the stars. So for right now, I'm an intermediary and I'm sending light to you, and that's awesome. Like, I like baking pies and I'm very happy to bake them for you and give them to you. And you're like, these pies are great, but I want to give you the recipe for how to bake them and make sure that you have the ingredients available to you so that that way you can do this for yourself, and you will receive the undiluted light of the essence of pure truth from the source of pure truth. And I will not be an intermediary. You're like, wait, Aurora, like you're putting yourself out of a job. I'm like, I know, I will be putting myself out of a job because that is what empowerment looks like. So I help you guys to get up to empowerment, and then I'm out of a job. And then you know what we do? Have an awesome jam session, which is like saying we collaborate as equals in the world of pure light. So in the world of pure light, I don't have to commodify the light that I'm sending out. I don't have to worry about how much to charge for it or tuition. And also I'm surrounded by everyone else who is also at light speed. And we do the coolest, most fun, most awesome things with all of the light that we are sending out and receiving amidst all of us. All right, beautiful. Elmer says, emanating gratitude. Thank you very much. And Waxy says, love you all. Let's have a dance party. I'm ready. I am ready. Let's do it. Pedro says, love the light and the lasagna. We love you too. Thank you very much, Pedro. And Aurelia is sending out hearts. And Suzuka says, thanks, Aurora and Cheeky. You are very welcome. Thank you to all of the athletes who are here in this class. And Aurelia says, let's make music. I am totally ready to jam. And it will be beautiful music. So yes, so this counts roughly as whiteboard number 2 and whiteboard number 3, but only some of whiteboard number 2 and a little bit of whiteboard number 3 if you want to know what you're looking at for your homework. So I want you guys to do your homework for next class. Prepare by watching the whiteboard that's all about photosynthesis and about combustion. And I think that that will really help you to be ready for when I go through all of it, because I think otherwise you're going to be like, there's math involved and other stuff. Don't be scared. It's awesome. You're going to love it. And you know what? Numbers contain light. Look at my artwork. It's full of numbers. It's full of the light of numbers. Caroline says, gratitude to all, including Cheeky. Thank you. And Michael S. says, many thanks. You're very welcome. I love it when you guys include Cheeky. Okay, so do your homework, but not today. For today, rest and recover. Protein and electrolytes. Then soon, do your homework. And then I look forward to next week. And I love running this class. And I love sharing with you. Thank you very much, everyone.